Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My sister is demanding I adopt her baby. 7 years ago, I, 35 female, adopted my niece who's 9 from my sister, 26. My parents have health issues and could not take her in, so I took on the responsibility. I love my niece, and I will never ever blame her for my sister's mistakes, but it had unfortunately uprooted my life. It caused a significant sidetrack in my career, and I've had to turn down better job offers because they wouldn't allow me to stay close enough to home. My parents love my niece, but cannot take on the responsibility of caring for her, so I don't want to separate them. I even had a boyfriend before I took in my niece, but he also did not want to have kids, and we made the decision to part when I took her in. We've never hid from my niece who her biological mother is, and even though the first few years of her life were hard, 3 years ago, my sister started being in our lives again. She told me that she wishes for me to keep raising my niece because I have the better job and can afford it. My sister only has her GED and can hardly afford to keep herself afloat. She usually lives with her temporary boyfriends, so she doesn't have to worry about paying for her own place. My sister acts like an aunt to her daughter, not like a mother, and my niece still loves her mother greatly. This past holiday, we were at my parents' to open presents, and my sister gave my niece a present to open. It was a shirt that said, "I'm going to be a big sister," on it. We weren't sure what this meant, but my sister informed us that she was pregnant and that she would not be able to keep it, and she was once again expecting me to take in the baby. My niece was so excited at the news, and my parents were happy to hear they were getting another grandchild, but I was just floored. I burst into tears immediately and just walked out. My sister came in to talk to me, and I told her that I wouldn't be able to take in the baby. I don't want a new baby. I love my niece, but raising her is enough responsibility already. My sister told me I would be wrong not to take in my niece's brother. She didn't mean to get pregnant, and she doesn't even know who the father is. My parents couldn't take on a baby either, so it's up to me. My sister told me I should feel blessed, but I don't. When I told my parents and niece, they were all very upset, my niece especially. I don't know what to do, but I can't take in another baby. I know it is my niece's sibling and my sister's kid, but it would completely ruin my life. My parents and sister are trying to get me to change my mind about this. Am I the jerk? She threw this on you in front of everyone, including her/your daughter? No, manipulation in its purest form. She's 26 now, not 17. She has a GED. That should count for something. At this point, if she can't get her life together to keep the baby, or simply doesn't want it, that's fine. She doesn't have to keep it, but it's not on you to keep it. She can put it up for adoption. There are other families looking to adopt. Not the jerk. You are not her child-raising service. Absolutely. Giving her biological daughter a "you're going to be a big sister" t-shirt as a way of attempting to force her sister to say yes to adopting a second kid is so incredibly manipulative that I would consider cutting off her contact to COP's daughter, at least until she makes massive amends and promises to never ever pull crap like that again. I was thinking the same thing, but that might just confuse the daughter more. Does the sister have any medical conditions? She sounds kind of spur of the moment, doesn't think things through, wondering if she's just a free spirit or there's something underlying she needs help with. It sounds to me like she knows exactly what she's doing. Buying the shirt, giving it to OP's daughter in front of everyone? Nah, that's manipulative behavior she puts some thought into. She knew everyone would gang up on OP, that OP would have to deal with an upset kid, and she would be absolved of any wrongdoing. Honestly, it's heartbreaking because I have a strong feeling that OP's relationship with their niece will not be unaffected by this. OP is going to come out of this looking like the bad guy, even though she is definitely not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your sister needs to look into adoption. You need to get some counseling for you and your niece. Dealing with her mother in and out of her life has to be confusing. It's especially hard because your sister is using your niece's excitement to manipulate you and your parents. You don't want to upset the kid you have raised, but you shouldn't let your family force you to take in another baby. You and your niece will benefit greatly from some professional counseling and to navigate this crap storm. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you adopt the new baby or not? Please let us know. That Karen needs to stop having babies she can't take care of. Am I the jerk for insisting my boyfriend eat respectfully at a nice restaurant? So my boyfriend, L, who's 20 male, and I, 20 female, have been dating for 7 months. We usually eat takeout if we want to get something to eat. However, I was recently promoted, so we went to eat at a very nice Italian restaurant to celebrate, like one with an enforced dress code. My boyfriend is not the nicest of eaters, which can be kind of gross, but I deal with it. However, I didn't realize he had no table manners. At the restaurant, after we were served our first appetizer, a beautifully plated bruschetta dish, Elle looked at me and jokingly asked me if I would be upset if he enjoyed his meal the same way he would at home. I told him that we were at a nice restaurant and there were other customers around. He didn't say anything, but instead started digging into the bruschetta with his hands, ignoring the serving fork, getting sauce all over his fingers. I let this go. However, when the pasta came out, he smirked at me and ate it like he hadn't eaten in a week. He dropped his fork and started picking up pieces of chicken and noodles with his fingers, getting sauce everywhere. The tablecloth, his hands, his clothes, his face. He didn't miss the opportunity to loudly burp after he had finished destroying his side of the table. The table next to us was astonished. My waiter even asked him if he was okay. Other customers were staring. He also put his feet up on the chair next to us, blocking the aisle. I had no idea what to do. You could start by dumping this bozo. Where do you find these guys? I didn't want to make even more of a scene, so I just asked for the check, which I paid, and left really embarrassed. On the way home, I told him how embarrassed I was, and he just said that it was my fault for not letting him enjoy the meal as he pleased, and that since we were paying customers, the other guests had no business judging us. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your boyfriend behaved like a toddler. The fact that he smirked before doing it suggests he knew exactly what he was doing and that he was trying to embarrass you. Not the jerk. This isn't like he used the wrong fork or made a bit of a mess failing with oysters or lobster. He was intentionally being disgusting because he wanted to make a statement. I'm too cool for a fancy restaurant. Agreed, not the jerk. Honestly, aren't you tired of dealing with your boyfriend's behavior? He's acting like a kid and you aren't his mom. Get yourself someone you don't have to worry about being in public or a restaurant with. It's just the basics of social politeness, and if he thinks he's above it, do yourself a huge favor and dump him. Not the jerk. This is the human equivalent of a pet looking you in the eye while it goes to the bathroom on your favorite cushion. It's not a lack of knowledge of how to behave on his part, it was a deliberate act of dominance. Take this as a warning sign. Your future successes and happiness will be treated the same way. Don't waste any more time on this jerk. Not the jerk. He ruined something you wanted to do. You're both 20. Does he clean himself properly? Or is he only a messy eater? I feel like he might be trying to shoot down your hopes for enjoying yourself and make you feel guilty for wanting the things you do and paying for it. It will only escalate from here if you don't nip this thing in the bud, the behavior, in my opinion. Although, also in my opinion, you're not his mom, and it's not your job to teach him how to behave like his own mother should have many years ago. Message his mom for advice detailing everything like you did for us and see what she says, or find literally any other adult who would at least feel ashamed of themselves for making such a fool of themselves. It's not OP's job to nip it in the bud, as though somehow OP has the power to change who he is. That's a trap people, especially women, often fall into. They see a problem and think that if they're patient enough, the person with the problem can be changed. Instead, they should ask themselves, if this never changes, is it something I can live with? If OP's significant other has redeeming qualities that she values more than basic public good manners, and she can live with this disgusting display for the rest of her life, then fine. If OP decides that she can't tolerate it happening every time she has an opportunity to enjoy a fine dining experience, then she should dump him and move on. No discussions necessary. Well, what do you think? Should OP dump her boyfriend or not? Please let us know. I'd have whipped out the phone and started recording him. Ex-boyfriend loses it at fancy restaurant. How's that for a viral video? I walked out of my boyfriend's celebratory dinner. Now he's fuming. So my boyfriend, Kyle, 26 male, recently got a promotion to general manager at the restaurant he works at. I, 22 female, work full-time as a pediatric nurse, and my hours are kind of all over the place right now because of lockdown. Anyway, when he got home to tell me about his promotion, I was ecstatic. He's a hard worker and deserves it, 100%. But because it happened on a Tuesday, we decided we'll go for a celebratory dinner with our mutual friends Saturday night. I was scheduled to work Saturday, but I figured that as long as I was able to get home, shower, and change, all is well. I'll just sleep late on Sunday. So fast forward to Saturday. I unfortunately lost a patient who had been fighting for her life since birth. I've been her nurse every time I was working in that department, and her family are very important to me. I was absolutely devastated. When I got home, the last thing on my mind was dinner. I told Kyle about what happened, and he gave me a hug and said he's sorry to hear that. About 10 minutes later, he softly asked if I was going to go shower before we leave. I told him I really don't feel like going out, but he insisted that I go since I promised, and if he goes without me, his friends will ask a lot of questions. I didn't want to, but I agreed since I did promise. While I tried to keep a smile on my face, it was obvious I was upset. One of our friends asked if I was okay, and before I could just say I had a rough day at work, Kyle said, "She's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today," and scoffed. I was flabbergasted. He's never said anything like that before. I replied saying, "That patient was 3 months old." He shrugged and said that it's not my own kid and it shouldn't bother me this much. I was furious and embarrassed since this went down in front of our friends, so I just put down enough money for my meal and went home. I put his stuff in a box. He wasn't living with me, but would stay with me for 2 to 3 days a week. When he came back, he flipped out, and I just said I need space. That was 2 weeks ago. I've since changed the locks since he had a spare key. He says I'm overreacting and that I'm a jerk for ruining his big night, that I, selfishly, made it all about me. He accused me of thinking higher of myself because I'm a nurse and he works at a restaurant. Honestly, I don't know where that came from. And he also said that he figured since it was a celebratory dinner for him, he thought I was going to pay, and so walking out on him was very embarrassing because he didn't bring his wallet. One of our mutual friends, Amy, called me and said that while what Kyle said was messed up, that me leaving like that was unnecessary and it made the whole night awkward. I feel bad for ruining the night for everyone else, but I just couldn't let him get away with that. I'm very proud to be a nurse, and I don't want anyone, especially my partner, to talk poorly about it. So do you guys think I'm the jerk for walking out on dinner? Edit. Wow, thank you guys so much for all the kind comments. I've just now been able to read through most of the newer comments, and I've got tears in my eyes. I've lost a handful of patients since I became a nurse, and one whilst in nursing school. And while it definitely hurt me, I've never been this impacted by it. It still hurts to think about, and I'm sure it will for a long time. But hearing your guys' opinions and seeing your support honestly means the world to me. I wasn't sure if I was overreacting by packing his stuff out since this was the first big issue I've had with him, but seeing your comments helped me realize I wasn't. Seeing how all of you, who are internet strangers that have absolutely no reason to leave such sweet, caring comments, have way more compassion and empathy for me and the baby than the man who's supposed to be there for me says quite a lot. So thank you all so much. Edit 2. So I've been seeing some comments about the wallet thing. I honestly have no idea if he actually forgot it or if he just said that to get off the huge check, which my friend said was over $500. I wasn't aware he wasn't paying until after he was gone, so I didn't check the house to see if it was actually there. Edit 3. So it's 10:20 a.m. and I can happily say Kyle is completely out of my life. His friend picked up the last of his stuff about an hour ago. I called Kyle and, officially, even though it was kind of obvious, broke up with him and his number is blocked. Time for a mimosa. Thank you all for your super sweet messages. This blew up and I'm just overwhelmed by the support y'all have shown me. Not the jerk. Kyle said, "She's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today," and scoffed? Wow. He's talking like this is, "We overcooked some calamari at work today and had to throw it out." And then to top it off, he assumed OP would pay for the dinner, even though that was never talked about before, so he didn't take his wallet. Wow is right. OP is already better off without him. I've been married for over 10 years. My husband pays most of the time when we go out, better reward system on his card, and I never leave home without my wallet. Relationship ending comment. She's been complaining about a patient she lost at work today. Who wants to make a life with someone with no empathy? Good for you for maintaining your personal ethics and boundaries. Not the jerk. Honestly, OP, I'm so impressed with you. I wish I had these kinds of convictions. You are not the jerk, and you are a role model to me. because I want to be able to stand up for myself like that rather than somehow take the blame for everything. You go, girl. Also, the fact that he hasn't even apologized and is still blaming you shows that the trash took itself out. Wow, you are not the jerk, but he sure is. Am I the jerk for uninviting my mom for my wedding because she got me a different gift than my siblings? I want to preface this with, it is about the money, and it is also not about the money. It's hurtful to be treated differently, and I know Reddit believes that no one owes anyone anything, but I feel like a mom does owe her kids fair treatment. I'm getting married in May to the love of my life. I don't think my mom is a huge fan, but at least she isn't one of those crazy moms that tries to break us up. There was one incident between them, but beyond that, the relationship has been mutually civil. I'm very lucky, and my parents paid for all of my schooling, including my master's. My mom seems to think that that is the norm, but I understand most parents can't do that, and I'm very fortunate. My fiance didn't have that opportunity, and she worked part-time and took out loans. She currently has $80,000 in student loans, but is working very hard to pay them back. My dad doesn't think I should marry her while she has them, but I made it very clear that isn't up for discussion. My dad is also paying for the wedding. When my sister got married, my dad paid for the wedding and my mom gave her a cash gift. I don't want to get into exact numbers, but it was extremely generous and probably more than the down payment of a house. I have another sister who is getting married in September, and I found out that my mom promised her the same amount of cash, but not me. I was upset because I believed at the time she was doing it because she dislikes my fiance. I confronted her and let her know if she was going to exclude my fiance or be hurtful just because she doesn't like her, there will be consequences. My mom said it wasn't about not liking her, it was about the student loans. My mom explained that both of my brother-in-laws have no debt, so the money was to start a future. But she knows if she gives me the money, it will go to the loan. True. And she feels she shouldn't be responsible for someone else's kid's college education. I tried to explain that paying down that debt ASAP is in the best interest of my future. My mom said she had thought a lot about it and asked her husband for advice. They both have kids from previous marriages and keep most money separate for estate planning purposes for their kids, so he doesn't have any vested interest. But he also hates me, so go figure that he said no. My mom said she feels bad, but I shouldn't punish her over a gift. I didn't say much at the time, but I thought long and hard and decided I don't want her at the wedding. She doesn't like my fiance. She doesn't care about my future as much as my sister's. She's playing favorites with her kids. I texted her my decision and she never replied. My sisters are now saying they aren't coming to the wedding, and my father is furious and demanding I re-invite her. My fiance actually teared up because she feels so supported, and this does hurt, but that has to be my priority. You're the jerk. You can invite or disinvite whoever you like for whatever arbitrary reason you chose, but do so knowing that in this case, you have no real argument against everyone thinking you're wrong. Yes, paying off the loans is an investment in your future too, but think of it this way. If your sister's marriages collapse, they get a refund on that investment, part of a house or equivalent value, even if it's in joint names, with which they can comfortably recover and start again. What do you get back from the loan repayment if you and your soon-to-be wife split up? It's still an investment, yes, but it's an unsecured investment, with risk of full loss rather than half. In the event of a split, your partner would get the full benefit of the gift, and you none, as opposed to half and half. Now, obviously, you're not going to think that you're going to split up because you're getting married, and doing so intending to split would be dumb. But from the point of view of an investment, you have to accept the inherent risk. And this risk also holds if something terrible happens. Your sister's husbands pass or become incapacitated, they have that security under them. What do you have if your wife passes or needs full-time care? And yes, again, that scenario is better without the debt than with it. But most aid would help with debt or current income, but won't help if you received a large gift and spent it. There's a lot of logic in what she's thinking, none of which is based on liking or disliking your fiance or playing favorites. Maybe she even intended to hold the gift in a trust, in effect, until you cleared under you. Or the unthinkable scenarios came about, so you could benefit in the same way without the added risks. Assuming immediately that it's punitive is overreacting, and I'm sure your assumption and bias has colored how your fiance reacted because you seem determined to make every innocuous decision into an attack on her. You're the jerk. You're an adult. Your parents are not obligated to give you anything. You're being treated differently because your circumstance is different. You just don't want to hear that because you want a handout you assumed you had coming. Neither is OP obligated to invite mom. She's literally downsizing a gift because she thinks OP and fiance are too poor to appreciate it. Yes, you get it. Crazy all the people who are voting OP is the jerk in this thread. OP's parents are playing favorites because he marries someone without means. OP is right to be upset, and it is his wedding. He chooses who he wants to invite. OP is not the jerk. I feel as though many of these people voting OP is the jerk because they're jealous his parents are wealthy without realizing his parents are slighting him because he has a poor/in-debt fiance. I'm between you're the jerk and everyone sucks here. Your mom doesn't have to give you money, and you shouldn't cut her out of a very important day over it. It makes you look petty and small, and honestly, when it comes down to it, you will probably regret this decision. Your mom shouldn't be picking and choosing between siblings. It's not fair, you're right. It's your choice to how you spend your money. Has your mom stated she would be giving you this money once the loans are paid off? That seems to be a fair compromise if you can all put your own egos aside. Everyone sucks here. Neither you nor your mother come out very well here. Your mother, giving large cash gifts to your sisters but not to you is certainly her right, but doing so is also a pretty clear case of playing favorites and a good way to build resentment between her offspring. She should not be surprised that you are hurt by the decision. She also shouldn't be surprised at a certain level of coldness from you in the wake of that decision. If your mother is playing favorites, you're certainly entitled to feel hurt. However, your behavior here comes across as entitled. Rather than let your mother make her decisions and react to them like an adult would, you instead demanded that she send you money. And now that you didn't get your way, you tried to hurt her by disinviting her from your wedding. I know you feel like you're being righteous, but really, you're just being petulant. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know. Oh, this one's juicy. Please do leave a comment. I really can't wait to read them. Am I the jerk for not paying for my food when my boyfriend ate it? Hi. Yesterday, as you all know, was New Year. My boyfriend, Alan, male 26, a couple mutual friends, and I, female 26, went out for dinner to celebrate at a restaurant. Just for extra information, I'm a little on the heavier side. I'm on a diet currently, trying to lose the extra pounds, and Alan knows. At dinner, I ordered something called the crispy lemon chicken with creamy Parmesan spaghetti. It looked so amazing, and I decided to give myself a treat after eating healthy for a while. Alan gave me a weird look when I ordered it and said loudly to all my friends, "Whoa, no more diet?" Which was kind of embarrassing. Alan ordered a mushroom cauliflower rice with sweet peas. The food came in about 20 minutes time, and to my shock, Alan immediately started digging into my spaghetti. I said, "Hey, that's my food," and he laughed. "You can have mine, it looks nice." I argued that I didn't order that. I sadly hate cauliflower rice with a passion, but he said that I didn't need the extra calories. I would have grabbed back my food, but I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of everyone, so I angrily relented. Later, when we were footing the bill, we were all supposed to pay for our own meals. Alan asked me for $14 to cover my food, which was the cost for the spaghetti. I said that I wouldn't pay because I didn't get to eat it. He then asked for $10, the price of the cauliflower rice, but I still disagreed because I didn't order it. He got angry and said that I was acting like a gold digger. He said that I was a jerk. My friends think he shouldn't have been rude to me, but that I should have paid for the cauliflower rice since I ate it. It's petty, but he's been complaining about me to people. So, am I the jerk? Edit. For people who didn't see my comments, yes, I did dump him after dinner. He ignored the message and asked, "Please Venmo me the money." Not the jerk. You dumped Alan immediately after dinner, right? He embarrassed you, ate all your dinner, and left you to eat something you didn't even like that he ordered. OP. Of course I did. We've only been dating for 2.5 months, so I dropped him a message saying I couldn't do this anymore. He ignored my message, viewed but no response, but he seems to get the memo. Good for you, girl. If I were you, I'd order that amazing chicken pasta dish tomorrow, plate it up at home, and take a gorgeous selfie with it with a caption that says something about how unexpected it is that this dish caused you to instantly lose 180 pounds. Insane Karen loses it at my restaurant. I worked for close to 15 years at a small restaurant in my hometown. Mostly I did takeout and rang customers out. We are cash only, and most people in the area know that. This took place in 2013. So one day, a woman approaches the counter. She tells me, rather rudely, that she's paying and throws the receipt at me. I bring up her bill and tell her the amount, and she hands me a Visa. I tell her cash only, and she stands there with the Visa. I tell her again that we're cash only, and she says, "Oh no, honey, you can take cards. I come here every week and always pay with a card." I tell her again we are cash only, and she huffs and puffs, then digs through her wallet and hands me an American Express. I tell her again that we are cash only, and again, she tells me she's there all the time and always pays with cards. I tell her she has us mixed up and that there's an ATM in the lobby if she needs cash. The woman's face goes into this shocked expression, and she says to me, "An ATM? Are you insinuating that I need money and that I'm poor?" She storms out into the lobby to use the ATM after digging through her wallet to find cash. She stands at the ATM for a few minutes, then comes back in, telling me that she's not using a sketchy ATM because it's a bank she's never heard of, and it charges $3 for non-members. She then asks where a certain bank was in our area. It was a fairly large bank, but our town didn't have a branch, and I didn't know where there was a location around us. I tell her this, and she tells me I'm useless as an employee, and she'll recommend to my boss that he fire me. I tell her there's an ATM for Bank of America, not the bank she asked for, 5 minutes down the street. She thanks me and starts looking something up on her phone for a few minutes. She comes back up to the counter and tells me she's driving to the ATM. I tell her I need collateral from her, and she goes crazy, telling me I'm accusing her of being a thief. She then says that she'll leave her kid there as collateral. I tell her okay, thinking she's running to the ATM 5 minutes down the road. The girl takes a seat over in the corner at the front of the restaurant where we have a few chairs and a bench, and I go back to helping customers. I totally forgot about her until like an hour or so later when I realize she's still there. I'm a little worried because the Bank of America ATM is only 5 minutes away, but then I remember the mom asked about another bank. I quickly do a location search for it, and the nearest branch is 45 minutes away. So I'm assuming that's where the mom went to. I keep checking up on the girl, making sure she's okay and asking if she needs anything. I ask her if she knows her mom's phone number so I can call to check on her to see how much longer. She gives me her mom's number and I call. Mom picks up after a few rings, and I introduce myself and ask how long she'll be. She tells me she went to the ATM, and while she was out, she decided to run a few errands while her daughter wasn't with her, and that she appreciates us watching her daughter. I'm infuriated. I tell her we are not a babysitting service and I'm not watching her, as I have a job to do. She starts going ballistic, telling me that something could have happened with her daughter while she was in my care. I tell her that she has 10 minutes to get here or I'm calling the police. She showed up 9 minutes later, talking on the phone about how her babysitter bailed on her while she was in the middle of running errands, threw the money on the counter, grabbed her daughter, and stormed out. I don't call him by his name either. Last night, my daughter came home from her job. She works retail in a nearby shopping plaza, with the sad news that their neighboring store, which specializes in kitchenware, is having a going out of business sale. It was tragic news in our home, as my wife and daughter both share a passion for baking and cooking and shop there often, so much so that the owner, my wife, and daughter are on a first-name basis. Ever since my daughter was little, she was mommy's helper in the kitchen. It's been a running gag in our house the past few years that we give her a 5-pound bag of flour among her Christmas presents. Now, 17, she enjoys flying solo in the kitchen, and her pierogies are food not to be eaten but experienced. My wife is feeling under the weather, so she gave me a list of things to look at, plus a surprise item, more later. I agreed to meet my daughter at the store when she finished work. My daughter had gotten there a little early, and I was a little late leaving the house, so she had already been in the store by the time I arrived. That's when the fun begins. Our cast: we've got sweetheart daughter, we've got obnoxious lady, and we've got nice store owner. I arrive at the store and find daughter chatting with the owner, commiserating over the store closing. Owner was feeling sad and appreciated daughter's sympathy, so I decided to shop for a bit and let them finish their conversation. I had barely made it 20 feet before I was overwhelmed by some of the choices. Nearby stood a middle-aged woman who, even with a mask, you could tell wore a perpetual scowl that curdled milk in a 5-mile radius. So I turned towards daughter and said, "Hey sweetheart, I have a question." Old lady: "Sweetheart? That's not how you address a woman." At this point, daughter hears the kerfuffle and sprints over, knowing that the gene that allows one to suffer fools gladly is only present in my wife's DNA. Owner wasn't with her, apparently having just begun ringing someone up. Me. But she's old lady talking over me, raising her voice. "You jerk! She has a name!" Me. "Yes, I know. I was going to point out I gave her that name, after my grandmother. but she continued raising her voice. "You address her politely as," emphatically, "Miss, or use her name." Daughter, now arriving, putting her hands up. "Look, it's okay." Old lady, turning to daughter. "No, it's not okay. You should not have to put up with," daughter, raising her voice. "It's okay. I don't call him by his name either. I call him Dad." It's obvious that the embarrassment is now further exacerbating old lady's rage, and were I not suffering fools gladly challenged, I'd have just let things go. But as I mentioned, I lack that gene. Me. This is the part where a reasonable person apologizes. Karen just glares at me, determined not to give me the satisfaction before turning and walking away. Me. Yeah, I knew our little exchange was one reasonable person short. Come on, with emphasis. Sweetheart, let's finish, with emphasis, Mom's shopping list. We worked through the rest of the list, filling our basket and ferrying up the larger items to the counter. There are no shopping carts. Thankfully, Karen had gone by the time owner began ringing us up. Me to owner. "Oh, I forgot one thing." This is where the aforementioned surprise comes in. I hurriedly returned with the deluxe KitchenAid stand mixer that elicited a puzzled look from my daughter, as we already have one. Turning to my daughter. "This one's for you. Mom and I figured that someday when you have your own place, you'll have your first appliance." Cue misty eyes from my daughter. Owner gave us an extra $50 off, which was yet another nice surprise. Am I the jerk for telling my sister no when she asked to have my house despite knowing how many kids she has? For some context, I, 29 female, have an older sister who's 34. About 5 years ago, our mom passed and her money was split between us, but the house was going to go to whoever had a kid first. I was 24 at the time of my mom's passing and clearly didn't plan to have kids anytime soon. So when my sister announced her pregnancy 1 year after mom's passing, I wasn't upset. I wasn't even sure I wanted the house in the first place since it wasn't my style. Eventually, I met my husband, 30 male, and we got our own house. My husband makes a lot of money, and the house he bought is almost 3 times the size of the house my mom had left behind. As of today, my sister has 4 kids and is currently pregnant with her 5th kid. I, on the other hand, just got pregnant with my first. My sister and her husband came over for dinner the other day. She brought up the fact that I was pregnant with my first kid and how she had already had 4 and was about to have her 5th. I questioned her because I wasn't sure where this was going, and then she said the following. "I mean, you and Alexander, my husband, only want 2 kids. Why don't we switch houses? I could have this one and you could take Mom's house. I would appreciate it. It would really help with space, and you would make me and your niece and nephews so happy." Bruh. I laughed out loud. The house Mom had left behind was big, and it was more than enough space for a 5th kid. I know my sister wants my house because it's more modern looking than Mom's. I replied by asking her if she was ill and if she felt okay. I was joking. I will admit it wasn't the best thing to say, but it was the first thing my brain could process to say. With that, she started screaming. She called me selfish and asked if I had no compassion for her. She went on and on about how I know her and her husband are struggling with money and that the old house just wasn't doing it for her. I yelled back and told her to get out of my house. With that, her and her family left. Her husband was glaring at me the whole time, and my husband couldn't do anything but laugh because he found the situation ridiculous. Since then, I've received texts from distant family members saying things such as, "Your sister never asks you for anything, just do her one favor," and "Your mother didn't pass for you to treat your sister like an animal." All I did was tell her no, and everyone's acting like I'm evil. Their words have really made me rethink if I did the right thing. So tell me, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She got a free house and she's still complaining? If she feels that there isn't enough space, then she should stop having kids. Seriously, if it's been 5 years since OP's mom passed and sister announced her first pregnancy in the following year, then she's been pregnant every single year for the past 4 years. That's crazy. In a way, I feel bad for her. The toll that must take on her physical and mental health must be immense, and hopefully this behavior is just her crashing. But I kind of don't think that's the situation here, and either way, she is the one choosing to add more to her plate. Birth control is an option. The mother's will taught OP's sister to associate deserving things with having babies. She's literally trained to think she's earning free houses by having more babies, and that she deserves more house than her sister because she's having more babies faster. Well, what do you think? Should OP give her house to her sister or not? Please let us know. Some of these stories literally make me lose my mind. I have nothing else to say. My fiance expects me to be his free babysitter. I'm 28, female, and my fiance is 29, male. He has full custody of his 2 daughters and 1 son from his previous relationship. I've been with him for 5 years. His oldest is 10. When the world crashed and burned, the kids were put into remote learning. Because I was the one with a smaller income, I ended up having to stay home with the kids while he continued working. This year, the school decided to stay remote, so I am still home. I worked remotely for a little while, but soon was terminated due to the noise the kids made and not having a space away from the chaos. We've not had a break in over 2 years. No one offers to help with the kids. We never have date nights, nothing. The kids are always here. Their mother is a deadbeat. She took them for 4 hours the other day, despite having agreed to have them for 3 nights. The kids now hate her. We do too. Anyways, we got invited out tonight and I'm itching to get out of the house. Our buddy is having a small get-together at his place, 5 people including us. We found out a week ago. Since this point, I have asked my fiance to find a sitter multiple times. I have searched as well. I've asked my mom and my gram, both of which cannot. So I told him to ask his mother. He has given every single excuse not to. I need to get out of the house. After all, I'm the one who is constantly home with the kids and I need a break. I need adult time, period. So I told him either he finds a sitter or he can stay home with the kids while I go out. In which case, he says that I'm taking things too far and that I'm acting like it's the end of the world. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You need to rethink this whole relationship. You are a convenience to him, literally an unpaid worker. You should never ever stop working to support someone else's kids when there's no discussion of the relationship becoming permanent. Edit. I do see where OP said fiance now, my mistake. However, what I'm trying to convey is that OP is getting boxed into a situation where she will be 100% dependent on her fiance and caring for kids that can be taken away at a moment's notice until she is legally tied to them. I'm not saying her fiance isn't a great guy, but he could end this relationship tomorrow or tonight, and OP would be left with no job, likely no savings, a gap in her job history, and a broken heart when kids she's grown to love are suddenly not there anymore. He still gets adult time through work, and I'm pretty sure he gets other extra time like going out for some drinks with colleagues because he needs to go to build team morale or any other excuse like this. What does a regular afternoon look like after he gets home from work? How many times has he taken the kids for the entire day to give OP a day to just be herself and not be such a caretaker nor do chores? I'm guessing not even once every 2 months, probably so much less. OP has been an unpaid nanny/teacher for over 2 years, lost her job due to taking care of his kids, and is now taking things too far by asking for the smallest of favors. I would run so far and so fast. Yes, I would leave him so quickly. He's literally using every excuse in the book to prevent OP from going out and getting some adult time. She's working tirelessly as a stay-at-home parent to support someone else's kids with no breaks over 2 years. She literally has to stop her job to stay at home looking after his kids, and he can't babysit, or more correctly, parent, for 1 night? This is not okay. OP, he's being less of a parent to his own kids than you. And no date nights in 2 years? What are you doing in this relationship? He wants you as a maid, not a partner. OP isn't acting like the end of the world. He's lost the right to say that after he refused to parent his own kids. 2 years without snapping requires incredible resilience. But unless you guys can work this imbalance out, it's time to go. Don't want to give me my bacon? That's fine. This happened to me about a year ago during the peak of lockdown, and I thought I would share it. There were several restaurants that were struggling last year, some near the peak of lockdown. Several shut down completely, and others fired all of their staff just to try to stay afloat. Around this time, my wife and I made it into a habit to order takeout from our favorite establishments. We always tipped the standard 20+%, despite these always being takeout orders. One restaurant in particular forgot to include the bacon that was supposed to come with our order. The order was around $20, with a tip of around $5, so around $25 total. When you picked your order up from this restaurant, you had to park and come inside. There was no drive-thru or curbside pickup. On this particular day, I picked up our order as usual and drove home, about a 5-minute drive. We immediately discovered that the bacon we had ordered was missing, so I called the restaurant. I expected to call and simply have them refund the $3 cost of the bacon. Simple enough, right? Wrong. This restaurant only had one person working the front, so when you called, you knew exactly who you were speaking with. When I called and stated that they must have forgotten to include the bacon, before I had a chance to ask for any type of resolution, refund, replacement, etc., this person informed me that there was a large sign in the restaurant instructing customers to check their orders for accuracy before leaving the store. As it turns out, the sign they mentioned was there. The instructions for checking your order was one of about 5 notes hastily written on a piece of printer paper taped to a wall. It was out of the way, not obvious, and sloppily handwritten. However, I had failed to read this note, and I had failed to check my order for accuracy before leaving the store. I admitted this and asked them to either refund the $3 or I could pick up the missing bacon. Definitely not a preferred option, but whatever. The restaurant refused these requests, told me the missing bacon was my fault, and went as far as to question whether the bacon had actually been forgotten, stating that they remembered packing my order. This is where the malicious compliance comes in. They had basically accused me of lying about $3 worth of bacon that was missing from an order. This conversation had escalated quickly in the span of about 30 seconds, and I was upset. I informed this person that they had failed to provide what I had ordered and that I would be forced to seek compensation, all $3 worth. I asked how they preferred I go about seeking this compensation, hoping that they would succumb and just give me a $3 refund. However, to no one's surprise but my own, the restaurant told me to go ahead and file a chargeback because they had video proof and that I would lose that chargeback case. So I did exactly that. I called up my credit card company and filed a chargeback. This chargeback was for $3 on a $25 charge, only $3, not the full charge. The agent with my credit card company offered to simply refund the $3 several times, but I kept insisting that it was the principle of it at this point, so I proceeded with the chargeback. There is paperwork that you have to fill out if a merchant contests a chargeback. About 3 months after initiating the chargeback, I get paperwork in the mail that instructs me to provide all of the proof I have. I provided no proof, other than a recollection of what the merchant had stated, including them stating that they had video evidence of the bacon going into my order. I felt like I had already won at this point. It was costing them time and energy, and I was happy to fight the fight, all for the sake of $3. A couple of months after I submitted this follow-up paperwork, I get a letter from the credit card company stating that they had decided in my favor and that the merchant was forced to credit me the $3, a big win for humanity. What many people don't know is that a chargeback costs the merchant, especially small merchants, and this cost can easily be upwards of $100, despite the chargeback being for only $3. Additionally, if a merchant has enough chargebacks, a card processor may increase the merchant's rates or discontinue a contract entirely. Basically, any chargeback a small merchant has on their record is bad. So in all, the restaurant instructed me to file a chargeback. I wasted a ton of their time, ended up costing them in the neighborhood of $100 for the chargeback fee and won the $3 that they should have just credited me in the first place. Edited to clarify a few things. 1. The person in question was not a teenager. Not sure where everyone got that from. They were middle-aged, late 40s, and appeared to be the manager. 2. No, I will not be naming the restaurant. They're still in business. I still go there, and I have not seen this person or manager since this incident. I have no idea whether they quit or were fired or are now a Reddit troll, but I know they no longer work there. What a strange hill for them to die on. The phone call alone probably made them lose money from how much time they spent on it. It was likely the employee themselves being crappy and didn't want to make things right. Any normal food worker would have just gone, "Oh, sorry, here's a side of bacon." The manager probably didn't even know about it unless they're the one on the phone. Am I the jerk for leaving my roommate's dog at the shelter? I, 26 female, used to room with a girl who we'll call Jade. Jade decided to get a dog when we were living together. The dog was fine. I didn't really pay much attention to it. Jade got sick and had to go back to her parents' house. She said it would only be for a couple weeks, so I agreed to watch her dog. That was in July. It had been a month, so longer than she told me to expect, so I sent her a message asking when she wanted her dog back. She didn't answer, and when I tried to contact her again a few weeks later, she had me blocked. I tried multiple ways of messaging her, but got no response. The apartment was in my name only at that point. I reached out to her parents as well, but also got no answer. I messaged Jade again and said that I was moving out of the apartment and wouldn't bring her dog, so if she wanted him back, she would need to pick him up within a reasonable time. That was in October. I got no response, so I left him at the shelter. He got adopted fairly quickly because he was a more expensive breed and had no behavioral issues, only a few medical problems. A few days ago, Jade messaged me. She asked if I wanted to room again. I told her I had my own house now, so that would be a no. She asked when she could come get her dog, and I told her I had given him up after not getting a response for months. She blew up at me. She said I couldn't leave her dog at a shelter and that I was being inconsiderate, and she had to leave for medical reasons and didn't want to but couldn't bring her dog. I told her that if she had answered, I would have kept the dog, but I didn't want to keep having to pay for a dog that wasn't mine, and I had no way of talking to the owner. She called me a hypocrite because I got a dog after giving hers up. Jade is still very upset with me and was complaining about me on social media. I didn't think I was a jerk at the time because I did warn her and try to reach out to her in multiple ways, but now I feel bad and think I may be wrong here. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She blocked you. Can't complain. Yup. Not to mention, OP did more than enough by trying to contact the dog's owner in multiple ways and even tried to contact the parents. Jade had ample warning/opportunity to come get her dog or have someone else come pick up the dog due to her illness. Sounds like OP just wanted some sort of communication that was never given. Not the jerk. Even if OP got their own dog after giving the other dog away. You can't abandon your dog for months and expect to have it when you're ready. Even if she had medical issues, she should have been checking in on her dog, giving money for food, etc. That's what you do when you care about your animals. Just ghosting someone because you don't want to deal with it means you forfeit your rights. Am I the jerk for only paying for myself when my fiance and future in-laws invited me to a New Year's Eve dinner at a scale restaurant? I, female 32, just got engaged to my fiance, male 37, Sam. We do not live together because we're waiting till marriage, given he and his family are highly conservative Christians, but they're really nice and lovable people. I had plans to spend New Year's Eve with Sam, but he said he was out for New Year's Eve dinner celebrations with his parents, then called me again, inviting me to join them, and I happily did. His parents were there. They welcomed me and ordered many dishes and desserts and drinks. We celebrated and had a great time, that is, until it was time to pay. I pulled my wallet out of my bag, letting them know that we'll split the check between us. Sam mumbled, "No, you don't have to. We invited you." But I insisted. He and his parents then stared at me. I asked what was wrong, and both mother-in-law and father-in-law said they didn't have money on them. I was shocked. I turned to Sam, and he said he too forgot his wallet at home and didn't bring enough money to cover even one round of drinks. His dad then laughed nervously. "All right, so guess we should let the doctor pay." I was taken aback. I said I'm sorry, but no, this is just so much money to spend on one dinner by myself, and I didn't think I was expected to pay the entire bill. Sam said I should pay and he'd pay me back later, but I said no, since I know he will have to get a job to pay that much money. Wait, so you're a 32-year-old doctor, and you're about to marry a 37-year-old guy who doesn't even have a job? Bruh. I said I'm sorry, but this isn't the first time I've been put in this situation by him and his family, where I'm expected to rescue them after they somehow forgot their wallets and expect me to pay hundreds for their extravagant dinner. I told them I'll only pay for what I had, and that's it. He and his parents were shocked. They started arguing about how I have the potential to pay right then and there, but I was acting as if they were strangers and not family. But that doesn't mean I'm obligated to pay. How could someone go out to a fancy restaurant, order so many dishes, desserts, and drinks without bringing money? Sam begged that I just do it and call it a night, but I refused. The argument got heated, then I got up and walked out. Sam called later at 2 a.m., basically yelling that I ruined New Year's Eve celebration and made his parents suffer because I refused to pay the entire bill, and instead acted selfishly and paid only for myself after they were gracious enough to invite me. I told him how unfair it was for me to pay. Even if I had a good salary, doesn't mean I want to spend it all on fancy dinner. He didn't reply. He just said he'll pray that his parents let this go and don't resent me after I basically damaged the relationship with them. I felt awful, thinking I should have covered the bill instead of leaving. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They all conveniently left their wallets at home. It doesn't seem likely they forgot them at all, and they invited you with the expectation that you'll pay. You should rethink marrying this guy. He expected you to pay for an expensive meal without your knowledge, and you've been put in this situation before by him. It seems he's using you for money, and that's extended to his family. They ruined their own New Year's Eve by trying to force someone else to pay for a meal they cannot afford. OP. Absolutely. And father-in-law's comment about letting the doctor pay was the biggest tell for me, though this wasn't the first time I was put in this situation. Why doesn't your partner have a job? Not the jerk. Why are you marrying this guy? You are being taken advantage of. 100% don't marry this guy. He doesn't have a job. It doesn't seem like a stay-at-home parent arrangement is in place, so he's essentially leeching off OP. Intentionally, it seems. They weren't gracious enough to invite you. If you invite someone out to dinner, you pay. The invite is nothing more than a calculated attempt to get a free meal out of OP. The fact that fiance didn't stand up for OP and even supported their comments raises a lot of flags. This is not the first time they've tried to take advantage of OP financially. It seems like Sam is also in on it with his parents, because no one leaves their wallets home that conveniently. OP, you need to seriously rethink the marriage and this relationship in general. His parents are not nice and lovable to you. They're nice to your wallet. And your future husband, hopefully not for long, are the same. You're in it for the marriage, he's in it for the money. Neighbor wants free Wi-Fi. My mother lived in a retirement community, small houses very close together. The gentleman who lived next door passed and left the house to his son who moved in with his wife, both about age 35. Even though this was a violation of the rules, at least one member of the household has to be over 55. No one really cared since the guy said he was just staying there for a few weeks until his new house was ready. Almost a year later, he was still there. Meanwhile, mom got her first PC, and the only option for broadband was DSL from the local telephone company. I think the speed was 2 megabytes and cost about $25 a month. When the telco installed the modem and router combo, the tech enabled the Wi-Fi and never set up any security. One day mom called me because her internet speed was really slow. I stopped by and found another PC was connected to the Wi-Fi. After verifying that she had no idea what this other PC was and had certainly not given anyone permission to use her connection, I disabled it. I also changed the router login credentials from the factory default. About 20 minutes later, her neighbor knocked on the door asking if everything was okay with her internet. Yep, all good. I said that if he was having problems with his service, he should call the telco. He said that he doesn't have his own service. Since he's only living there temporarily, it didn't make sense to pay for his own service when he could just borrow mom's Wi-Fi. But now he can't connect. Perhaps something was blocking the antenna. He wanted to come in and take a look. I politely explained that the antenna is fine. He can't connect to her Wi-Fi because I disabled it. He got very upset and demanded I enable it. I suggested he call the telco and get his own service. He said it would take several days for the telco to get set up, and what was he supposed to do until then? I suggested he use the free internet at the public library, but I was not going to enable her Wi-Fi. If he had been nice and said he would call the telco and get his own service, and maybe offered to split the cost, I would have enabled the Wi-Fi until his was set up. But since he was such a jerk, I just shut the door. Edit. I should have been more clear. This happened a few years ago. My mother didn't want to start a battle with her neighbor. The other residents complained that if this guy was allowed to live there, why couldn't their grandkids stay for the summer? The HOA got a court order to make him vacate the property. He tried to fight it, but lost. He was told he could retain ownership and rent it out, leave it empty, and still pay the monthly maintenance fee or sell it. He sold it and moved. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my sister-in-law money she claims I owe her? My brother and sister-in-law got married 3 years ago in a ceremony that was attended only by parents on both sides. Their intent was to do that and have a large reception later on for the rest of the family. 6 months after the wedding, they sent us out to save the dates, and my sister-in-law called and asked if I would want to be a bridesmaid. Sister-in-law put me in a group chat with the rest of the wedding party and sent links for the dress, shoes, makeup, and accessories. The cost of this alone was $1,200 and did not include any tailoring that needed to be done to the dress. We were also going to need to pay $70 to get our nails done with the nail polish, as well as an additional $150 for professional hair and makeup the day of the wedding. Then we had to pay for my son's tuxedo and shoes, which was $160. The maid of honor, which is her sister, added me to a different group chat to discuss the bachelorette and bridal shower. The cost for each of these per bridesmaid was going to be $750 a person. There were 7 of us. Unfortunately, during this time, our boiler/furnace died, and the upstairs bathtub cracked and leaked through the ceiling in the basement, and we had to replace a chimney flute to the tune of $16,000. I texted the maid of honor and let her know what happened and told her that I would not be able to give her the money for this, as we had just spent so much repairing the house. She immediately went to my brother and told him that I was refusing to pay her. I explained what happened to my brother, and he told me not to worry about it, he would talk to her. I thought everything was okay. The reception party and little ceremony were nice. I talked to my brother the week after this, and right off the bat, he asked about the money I owed to her. I told him that I did not have that kind of money right now, and reminded him that he said not to worry about it. He then said that we need to pay our share of the parties, which I did not even go to, by the way. And I again said that I did not have that much money to give out right now. My sister-in-law then said that I could make payments, and I told her that wasn't happening. Now, every family event that we attend, my sister-in-law makes snide comments and remarks about us being deadbeats and refusing to pay our debts. And while I now have the money and could give it to her, I'm refusing to give it to her. Am I the jerk for not giving her the money? Edit. Since I guess I was unclear, I paid for the dress, shoes, makeup, nail polish, jewelry, hair accessories, and hair and makeup, as well as the manicure and pedicure as soon as I agreed to be bridesmaid. I did not find out about the extra $750 for the bachelorette and bridal shower until after I paid for everything else and after my house fell apart. You need to buy her the full DVD set of Bridezillas as a gift for New Year's and give it to her in front of the entire family. Problem solved, not the jerk. Not the jerk. If you gave them enough warning and didn't even attend the party, why are they expecting you to pay for it? What was at this party that even cost that much on top of everything else? 7 times 750 equals $5,250. Not the jerk. You didn't go to the parties and you didn't agree to pay it, so you don't owe them anything. Next time she calls you a deadbeat, call her a mooch for trying to get people to pay for parties they didn't attend. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Extravagant weddings, rehearsals, recitals, bridal showers, parties, bachelorette stuff. Why do people insist on spending money that they don't even have? Karen, welcome to America. Am I the jerk for kicking out my girlfriend on New Year's Eve? We can all agree that 2020 was a bad year, particularly for my 29 male family. We lost our dad beginning of the year after he had a heart attack, and my little brother, 12, had no one to take care of him. Our mom passed when he was 3, so our dad was all we had left. I fought for custody and was appointed his legal guardian. Honestly, it hasn't been easy. We're still adjusting to these life changes, and my brother is taking it the hardest. For months, he was just not himself. Bad attitude, lashing out. I got him in therapy because I knew he was just hurting, plus stress of lockdown. His behavior has improved so much since then, even if sometimes there's days where he's withdrawn. Days before Christmas, he was feeling sad since it was our first holiday without Dad. That day, he asked to be left alone. We had a talk to discuss his feelings, and I gave him the space after that. My girlfriend was over that day, and I went out to buy groceries. When I got back, my brother was out of his room and helping out. I didn't think anything of it at the time. Yesterday, my brother and I were out having some guy time before going back home to get ready for New Year's Eve. My brother opened up about how grateful he is for everything, and he hopes that I don't change my mind about taking care of him. I asked why he'd think that, and he told me what happened. That day when I was out, my girlfriend went to his room to tell him he needs to change his attitude and stop moping, her exact words, because he should be grateful I'm taking care of him at all, and that we can still hand him over to the state if we wanted to. I was furious about this and had to reassure him that was never going to happen because he really was worried about it. We went home, I confronted my girlfriend, and she didn't deny it. She told me it's true, and there was nothing wrong with telling him to stop acting like that when he should be grateful I gave up my life to take care of him. And the thing about giving him up isn't that big of a deal to her because it's not like I'll actually do it. I said she still scared him with that threat and told her to leave my apartment because honestly, I was far too mad and because I didn't want her to be near him right now. She started crying. There was more fighting, but she left in the end. It was just me and my brother for New Year's. Since last night, I've been bombarded with calls from all our friends for kicking her out, knowing she has no family and nobody else to spend the holiday with. Everyone has sided with her, and even my best friend says I may have overreacted by making her leave when she probably thought she was helping. They've heard my side of the story, but still think I was the jerk for making her cry and spending the new year alone. I'm having trouble seeing how I could be, so here I am looking for internet strangers to weigh in on this. Update. Okay, wow, this has gotten a ton of feedback. Thanks everyone for your kind and encouraging words. I might not have replied to a lot of the comments that made me smile, but just know that I read and appreciate them. I know I only posted this a few hours ago, but I've had a day to clear my head and really think about this. I talked to my brother because I wanted to know if she said anything else to him. Thankfully she hasn't, and we had another serious chat to remind him everything she told him is completely false. I would never in a million years give him up, and that shouldn't have been put in his head. Another thing I told him was that I'm grateful he's here with me. Without him, I wouldn't have made it through the year, and I thanked him for giving me the strength to keep going. Someone who DM'd me suggested reassuring him that he's not somehow ruining my life in case he feels any guilt for what she told him. Thank you for that suggestion. Now, I know you are all waiting on this news. Yes, I did break up with her. Thinking about what a lot of you said, talking to my brother about how this made him feel, and my own thoughts about how badly she acted, I decided that's not someone I want to be around me or him. I can't risk her doing something like this again and ruining any progress he makes in therapy. I know many of you think I should have done it on the spot, but I wanted to make this decision with a clear head and not when my emotions were extremely high. She came by my place earlier and we talked outside. Her reaction was as bad as you'd expect, and she still believed she did nothing wrong, even after I explained it all to her. There was just no making her understand, and I told her it was over. I gave her a couple of her things that were lying around my apartment, and she left. My phone started going off like an hour later, so I had to put it on Do Not Disturb. That's all the drama I could handle for one night. I'll deal with my friends some other time. Honestly, I'm exhausted, mentally and emotionally drained right now. I think this weekend we'll do something to get our minds off this. I definitely need it after everything, and I know my brother does too. It's been a hard year already without all this extra drama. Anyways, sorry for the long update, you guys, but I didn't want to leave anyone hanging. I'm sure more comments will keep coming. I probably won't be sleeping much tonight, so I'll keep my mind busy by reading and replying to more of you. Thanks again for the support. What a crappy way to start the new year, but here's hoping for better things. Karen lies about me and my family on TikTok. When I, 28 female, first met my sister-in-law, Anne, who's 30, I heard about her having a TikTok account based around looking after her old and disabled cats, but I don't use TikTok, so I never checked it out. That was until my husband's niece asked to meet for coffee to talk. At first, she asked me how I was doing mentally and what I had against my brother's girlfriend, Anne. I was beyond clueless because I thought me and Anne, were okay relationship-wise. Now don't get me wrong, I haven't spoken to her much because I'm extremely busy, but other than that, I couldn't think of anything. She pulled out her phone and showed me multiple TikToks of Anne telling her followers about my Just No family. I'll just list a few things. My mother being so proud of a Just No mother-in-law, they had to get a restraining order against her. I demanded my kids play with her cats and had a tantrum when she said no. I'm a nurse, so you know I've seen what happens when kids play with animals that they shouldn't. I'm dependent on my brother and demand he gives me all of his time and money. Me and my mother call everything she does in life shameful because she's not modest or religious like us. The last and worst is that I'm anti-everything, which as a nurse could have cost me my job. I ended up making an account, downloaded all the videos, and sent them to the family group chat. You can imagine what happened next, but instead of giving an answer, both my brother and sister-in-law blocked everyone. Anyone in my family who had the app followed her cat account, but were blocked on her main. My cousin ended up making a TikTok debunking her videos, but her account was already gone. My brother ended up calling me, screaming down the phone about his girlfriend having an anxiety attack, and I should have come to them first. Apparently, he said she makes up those stories for views so she can become a creator, and it also helps with her anxiety. He said if anything ever got out of hand, they would go on the record about it being made up. Not the jerk. She doesn't get to rip apart everybody's reputation with made-up stories for popularity. It would be one thing if it was fake people, but it's clear that she's giving away enough information that it's getting back to the people she's lying about. Agreed. Also, pretty sure OP and family could sue for defamation and slander if this is in the US. I'm really hoping OP is in the US, just in case the sister-in-law tries any of this crap again. How big of them to offer to come clean if anything got out of hand? And when would that have happened? After OP was facing discipline for this? The truth is that it already did get out of hand. The moment OP's niece saw the TikToks, it had gotten out of hand. I figure either OP's brother never considered that there are people outside of his family that would see these and bring them to people's attention, or he didn't know his significant other was doing this and is just scrambling to do damage control in an effort to protect her. Not the jerk. What was her plan if you lost your job because of her lies and then sued her for libel? OP. I asked my brother about that and he couldn't answer me. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for showing the TikToks to her family or not? Please let us know. I'd cut out both brother and sister-in-law. He's enabling her to do all this madness. But don't worry, he'll reap what he sows. Eventually, he's gonna be the one she turns on. Boyfriend expects me to move into a house without being a co-owner. I, 27 female, have been with Ben, 29 male, for 1.5 years. We agreed if we got married, we'd have a prenup and keep our finances separate. He was clear from day one he would never want to combine them. Ben bought a 5-bedroom house. He lives with friends and calculates their rent by dividing the mortgage by the number of people living in the house. His mortgage is high, in part because it's a 15-year mortgage. He had a bad credit score, and his down payment was small. This also doesn't give Ben any money to maintain the house. He uses credit cards and payday loans for urgent house repairs. Ben doesn't agree with my decision to prioritize my savings over paying off my subsidized student loans, things he thinks I should stop doing until I'm debt-free. I contribute to a 401k to maximize an employer match benefit. My checking and savings have 6 months of income. I'm building an investment account I might eventually use to buy a house. Ben has suggested I drain these accounts and use the money for debt repayment. He thinks I need to be more like him. At the end of the month, all of his extra money goes towards debt. He doesn't seem to care about the amount of debt I have, just that it exists, and I could be paying it off faster. Oh God, is this guy one of those Dave Ramsey nuts? I take it you don't like Dave Ramsey? The guy doesn't even know what Bitcoin is. Recently, Ben has been saying it's a waste of money for us to have 2 places and suggested I move in with him. We don't stay at his house often because of his roommates. I don't like his house and would rather keep my apartment. He argues the money I spend on rent is money we could be saving. I wouldn't be saving money and I'd need to buy a car. The house is expensive for reasons I wouldn't benefit from, and it's big. I don't want to live with someone unless we are renting a place together or own a place together. I'm uncomfortable with him being the sole owner of the house we live in. He'd control how much we both have to spend on housing and what changes and upgrades are made. I want us to contribute equally and have an equal say in the decisions. He says we can't rent a place together because paying rent is money down the drain. And we can never own a house together because we agreed to have separate finances. I thought separate finances meant we could eventually buy a house as long as we split the down payment and mortgage 50-50. He thinks owning a house together is combining finances. I said that's fine. He can someday move into a house that I own. He said that was ridiculous, as I don't know when I'll be ready to buy a house. He said I have no valid reason for refusing to live in a house just because he owns it, and this would force him to either go back to renting or combine finances with me. He especially doesn't want to co-own a house with me because I'm irresponsible with debt. Am I the jerk for agreeing to separate finances and now being unwilling to live in a house I don't own? He just told you that you two are incompatible financially, not the jerk, and it's time to seriously consider the longevity of this relationship. OP. Yeah, I just feel bad because when we started dating, he checked if I was okay with separate finances. It seemed like we were compatible at the time. Now it feels like I'm changing my mind and I'm not okay with that situation. Should I have known that separate finances means we can't own or rent a home together? Absolutely not. You didn't change your mind. You offered a solution that would keep you both at even equity. He wants you to move in with him to help him relieve his poor debt choices. Edit to add, not the jerk. OP. My assumption of separate finances still included us owning a house together. I could give him a lump sum to match the equity he already owned in the house. We could use the money to remodel or refinance the mortgage. He'd add my name to the deed. After that, we'd split the mortgage evenly. I'd even be willing to pay more than 50% of the mortgage because I suspect I make more money than him. That's based on his job and what he said about his finances. I'm also willing to pay more for the things that matter to me that he doesn't care about. For example, he doesn't care that the carpet smells like cat pee. If my name was on the deed, I'd be willing to pay for it myself. Or I could pay more so we could afford to not have roommates. Make no mistake, he's counting on you paying for doing stuff like that without your name ever being on the house. OP. I don't even know yet if he'd let me make this improvement. I don't want to live in the house without certain improvements being made that he can't afford. I'm sort of backing him into a corner where if he wants to live with me, he has to accept a level of financial entanglement. Because of my debt, he might be right to object to that. He has a bad credit score. He takes out payday loans, which have extremely high interest rates. He has no savings. Otherwise, he wouldn't be taking out terrible payday loans. On the other hand, you are very responsible financially, and you want to be involved financially with this man. Why? The number one reason why couples argue is money. You're setting yourself up to be quite unhappy. I would rethink your plans. I don't know if you saw, but in OP's post, she said she's bad with money, something he's implied due to her debt, and she believes it from what she has said. Yet she's actually more financially sensible than he is, especially as her credit score is much better than his while being in debt. It suggests she at least keeps up with all her payments. He sounds horrible, as if he's trying to corner her into living with him on his terms, while she's trying to compromise and go 50-50. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Dave Ramsey says the most common reasons for divorce involve fights about finances, your kids, and about your in-laws. You really have to be on the same page for these things to work out. Karen, I thought you didn't like Dave Ramsey. Oh, he's okay. We just disagree on a few things. Am I the jerk for telling my ex he and his wife need to stop fostering kids? My ex-husband is remarried to a very nice woman, Vanessa. They've been together for 8 years. While my ex-husband and I have 3 kids together, who are 12, 14, and 17, Vanessa isn't able to have any biologically. She's been an amazing stepmom to my kids, and I feel safe with them going there every other week. However, over the past 5 years that they've been married, Vanessa and my ex have fostered kids in hopes to adopt. They fostered a baby for 3 years from the time she came home to the hospital, and she ended up reunited with her family. It was extremely hard on the kids, as well as my ex and Vanessa. Immediately after, they began fostering another kid who was 5 years old and were supposed to adopt them. Right before Christmas, he was reunited with his biological father that they originally had no information on. This has been incredibly hard for the kids. They're devastated and started going to therapy after their first foster sister was removed from the home. Recently, my older 2 came to me and said they cannot take another loss. They keep getting very attached to these foster siblings and to only have them ripped away. It's not the fault of their dad or stepmom, and it's also amazing that these kids get to stay with their biological family, the goal of foster care. But it doesn't change how hard it is on them. They told me that their dad and stepmom have been talking about taking on a new placement in the new year and have said they won't live with their father if they do so. They had tried talking to him, but all they got was, "It's the reality of foster care." I went to my ex and Vanessa to talk about the kids. They kept saying that this is the reality of foster care, that it hurts them too, but they feel they're at least offering a loving and safe home to these kids. I asked, what about the kids that they have already? My ex-husband's argument is that they'll be off to college soon. I asked why they can't at least wait for the older 2 to leave the home, and they asked, what if Vanessa got pregnant? Would they get to control that? I argued that would be different. That's not a sibling they'd risk losing. I ultimately said what the kids did. If they continued to foster, our elder kids would choose to not come around as much, and I'd support them in court. If our youngest wanted to keep up the custody agreement, that's fine, but I'd keep them in therapy. My ex called me and said Vanessa has been sobbing all weekend after my threat. He says it's not fair to ask this of them and make them decide. I told him it's up to him to decide what he could live with. Am I the jerk? Edit. I thought it was clear, but my ex and his wife have them every other week. We alternate holidays and such. Edit 2. Many people keep asking if my kids understand what fostering means. They do. They understand the logistics of fostering. That doesn't mean they can help their emotions. Their therapist has said they are traumatized by these events. Edit 3. Potentially the final update. I did reach out to my ex and his wife. I apologized for telling them that they shouldn't foster again, as that part is none of my business. I did share that I feel it might be beneficial for the 2 of them and the kids to see a family therapist or mediator so all sides can be heard. They actually agreed that it's a good idea and they're going to find a different therapist just so there's no bias, which I support. What happens from this point is beyond my control and business. I am hopeful that my kids can continue to have a strong and healthy relationship with their father and stepmother. To those that said my kids should naturally be stronger or doubted their trauma, I sincerely hope you do more research and learn that needing therapy doesn't make you weak or spoiled. It helps with coping strategies and gives a safe place to talk about their feelings. To those that accused me of being jealous or bitter, no, I'm remarried with another kid. I'm happy for them and wish them nothing but happiness and peace in the future. Not the jerk. Firstly, they should not be going into fostering with the sole intention of adopting, unless they are specifically taking in only kids who have already had the goal of their case changed to adoption, which doesn't seem to be the case here. The goal of foster care is always first and foremost reunification. Adoption should only become the goal where absolutely necessary. They're going to struggle to be good advocates for those kids when their goal is to take that kid away from their family. I also assume their skewed goal is impacting what they're telling your kids and leading to your kids taking the reunification much harder. Secondly, wanting to help kids in need should not and cannot come at the deficit of the well-being of your existing kids. You are right to stand up for your kids. OP says in the comments that their goal was supposed to be adoption for both kids and relatives were discovered after they were placed. Also, the post and comments indicate that they are aware of and understand that the process will inherently involve kids getting reunited with their family, and they're willing to accept that. While your second point has merit, your first is crucifying them based on an incorrect assumption. Not the jerk. What they're doing is amazing, but here's the thing. It's hard on your kids, and as their parent, it's your job to advocate for them. You're right that your ex and Vanessa can foster later. They're doing a good thing for those kids who they foster. It's just hard for their own kids. Not the jerk. Your kids sound like they're hurting a lot. I can't imagine it's been easy for them, and it sounds like their therapist is agreeing with the kids that it's been really hurting them. They said they talked to their dad about it and it got nowhere. You aren't butting into a stranger's business. These are your kids, and they asked you, their mother, to intervene. No matter what all the "you're the jerks" are saying here, you're actually responsible for the mental health of your kids. And that includes what happens at their other parent's house. You can't stop them from continuing to foster, but you can respect your kids' wishes. Your oldest is past the age where they get legal input for custody agreements. I'm not sure about the 14-year-old. If your kids decide that they need to protect their hearts from another loss, and both they and their therapist think this is the best option, then as their mom, you're doing the right thing. It doesn't make it easy. It's an awful and heartbreaking situation, but your priority isn't your ex's desire to foster or to adopt, no matter how needed good foster parents are. It's the mental health of your kids. It's not pretty, but it is what it is. Well, who do you think is in the right? OP or her ex-husband? Please let us know. OP is trying to save her kids from having their hearts broken. Dad is being selfish and focusing only on what he and his new wife want. Evil step-grandmother tries to ruin my Christmas, but I unintentionally ruin hers instead. Cast. We've got my former stepdad, and we've got my former step-grandmother, who we'll call Karen. Karen would even encourage my younger stepsister, who we'll call Anna, to tease and harass me as much as possible, just to provoke me and give Karen more of a reason to torment me. When I was 9 years old, I moved back from Colorado to California to live at Karen's house with my mother and two younger siblings, while stepdad stayed back in Colorado for a few more months to finish up his contract in the Army. We were staying there so that my stepdad can save up for us to be able to move out into an apartment together. I absolutely hated living at Karen's house. She made it a goal to make me as miserable as possible while we lived with her. She made sure not to do it in front of my mother either and would deny everything I would say whenever I would run crying to my mother about it. The sad thing is, my mother believed me but would do nothing about it whatsoever. But that's another story entirely. Karen enforced a bedtime on me without TV, which is realistically understandable in of itself, except for the fact that Anna could stay up and watch TV herself secretly in Karen's room. Just another way for her to mess with me. I had no sense of safety or security in that house. I would stay in my room and away from Karen as much as I possibly could. I wouldn't even go into the kitchen and get food if I was hungry, just because I was afraid. She would be right there ready to mess with me if I wanted something to eat. So I only ate dinner in that house because my mother would be there, and I reluctantly knew that was the only safe chance I had to eat. I still ate at school and everything, but it's a shame I couldn't eat when I wanted to at any point because Karen had placed that much anxiety and stress in me. For the next part of this story, I want to quickly give some context. I fell in love with Pokemon as a kid and would religiously play Yellow version on my Game Boy Pocket every single day. I very badly had been wanting a Game Boy Color since it first came out. Fast forward to Christmas time, we're all opening gifts. My siblings and I all get some toys each for different things we like from mother and stepdad. Next, I open my last gift from Karen, which is some cheap battery-powered Pokemon game that's shaped like a Pokeball with no screen and a bunch of red lights that come in the kind of plastic packaging you need scissors to open all around the edges. Anna opens her last gift from Karen, and it's a green Game Boy Color. I immediately started crying, not because I was ungrateful and expected more. I'm always appreciative with any gifts that I get. It was because I knew for a fact that Karen did that to deliberately get to me. The reason I know this is because Anna didn't play video games ever. She had a Nintendo 64 with a few games, but that thing collected dust until I started living there. Anna didn't even ask for a Game Boy Color for Christmas. All she wanted was Rugrats figures. After all of that happened, I went to my real dad for the rest of Christmas and to spend time with him and that side of the family. I open all my gifts and get a bunch of cool stuff, toys and some Batman pajamas. Finally, my dad gives me 2 final gifts to open. I open the first box and it's Pokemon Gold and Silver, and I'm already beyond thrilled, thinking it can't get any better than this. I open the next gift and it's a purple Game Boy Color. I could not contain myself. I was so happy, it really felt like a dream come true. After some time with my dad's family, I return home to Karen's house and run inside, excitedly holding up my Game Boy Color, showing my mother and stepdad. Karen sees the Game Boy Color in my hand and immediately storms off to her room and slams the door as hard as she can to not be seen again for the rest of that day/night. Even my mother, who doesn't even bother to defend me, couldn't help but find it funny that her plan to ruin my Christmas had backfired on her. I recently told my dad this story on Christmas this year, and he and I both had a good chuckle over it. Am I the jerk for telling my parents I would not visit them again until they learned sign language? When I was 18, I was in an accident that caused TBI, resulting in me losing most of my hearing in both ears, making me deaf. I didn't qualify for cochlear implants, so being deaf was just my new reality. Obviously, this derailed my life for a while. University got pushed back, and I was depressed for a long time. Eventually, I got back out there, discovered the deaf community, learned ASL, American Sign Language, and at 26, I now feel very content with my life. My parents were devastated by my accident, and our relationship has never been the same. A few years ago, I told them I have embraced being deaf, and I asked them if they would learn American Sign Language, as this is now how I prefer to communicate. They said no at the time because they didn't have time to learn a new language. I've tried many times over the years to try to give them information on deafness and ASL, but they have shown no interest. We communicate now mainly by using voice-to-text on our phones, which is far from perfect and very chaotic when multiple people are talking. Trying to keep up with conversations is exhausting, and people are constantly getting frustrated with me for not following along. Often we watch movies, but they refuse to turn the captions on because it's annoying, despite the fact that it means I can't understand the movie at all. This past Christmas, I once again struggled with conversations, which once again resulted in me being either ignored or yelled at. Before I went home again, I set my parents down and told them that if they did not begin to learn American Sign Language, I would not be visiting again for a long time. I told them I don't expect them to ever be fluent, but I need them to show effort in learning. I told them that they have continuously dismissed my needs as a deaf person, and that if they want to continue to have a meaningful relationship with me, we need to have some kind of shared language. This didn't go over well at all, as my parents accused me of wanting to cut them off, which isn't true. I just can't do any more visits where my presence feels like a burden. My brother and I have been texting since then, and he thinks I'm being hugely unfair. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I can't respond to everyone, but thank you everyone so much for your kind words and support. I've been spending the last few days wondering if I'm being unreasonable or dramatic, as even though my friends, most of whom are deaf, support me, I didn't know what the hearing would think of this. I can now see that my parents are clearly being unfair. Not the jerk. They can't even turn on the captions? What the heck? No, they are being unfair. Also, they either can't or don't want to learn ASL. Either way, you cannot keep accommodating them while they do nothing to accommodate you. You're doing the right thing. Either they will come around or they won't. Just live your life around people who appreciate you and make you happy. I wish you all the best. Not the jerk. I'm furious for you. They find captions annoying? Your post doesn't make it clear if your parents have always been jerks or if they are in some sort of weird denial. In my limited experience, the deaf community really is a community. Find your new village and prosper. Yeah, it ticks me off when people act like that. Asking people to learn even just a little American Sign Language is wildly unfair? The closed captions are annoying? Forget that. What's unfair is someone to get into an accident bad enough to practically lose most of your hearing, and then their family refusing to accommodate, being unsympathetic, yell at them, and actively treat them like a burden for a situation they cannot control. What's annoying is being forced into social situations where they can't understand what's happening besides through body language and maybe context, being excluded and treated like crap. OP, find people who will actually take the time for you. Your family won't take the time for you and didn't when they should have been. Find a new home and a new family, one that you deserve. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I'll stop paying for everything, including therapy, if he doesn't start looking for a job? My husband, male 32, and I, female 33, have been together for a total of 4 years. He's dealt with depression and anxiety since 2019. He completely shut down, quit his job, sold his car, emptied his savings, and stopped seeing friends and family, and started spending his day doing nothing. Not a thing. None. It took months before realizing he was dealing with a mental health issue, and I've arranged for him to see a therapist. He was against it at first, but then agreed to give it a try. He got better, and his quality of life improved. He regained his quality of life. He started going out and became sociable. He bought a new car and did a 180 makeover from hair, clothes, and working out, and even adopted 2 dogs. It was miraculous, and I was happy that he got his life back. Except that he still doesn't work. Not only that, but I used my money to get this transformation done. When I tried to talk to him about finding a job, since he's now doing well, he tried to put the idea off and say he needs more therapy to be ready to start committing to a job and start working. This went on for months, and he jumped from therapist to therapist and still said he's not ready to look for a job, yet goes out with his friends, eats food with them, buys new gadgets, and now a screen to watch his favorite shows. Last night, we had a huge argument after I found out he bought a $200 wristwatch for himself using my credit card. I couldn't handle it, and I shouted at him that it was time for him to find a job. He tried to use the, "I'm still not ready for that kind of commitment yet," but I blocked his attempt and told him I'd stop paying for everything, including his therapy. He got mad and replied that threatening to stop paying for everything, even his therapy, will set him back, and we both won't get where we want to be. But I told him he was a hypocrite for saying he's not ready to look for a job since he's living completely normal, and may I say, lavish life. He called me unbelievable and walked out. He called his mom, telling her I was losing it, and she got in the middle, telling me off about what I said, and told me to have some sympathy for him as he's still struggling to regain his strength. But I told her to stay out of it, which caused more rage from my in-laws. They're arranging for a meeting with me, but I don't plan on going, which might make matters worse. I just think at this point he's milking it. Am I the jerk for my stance? What is worse is that now I'm the bad guy in my in-laws' eyes. They accused me of trying to hold his progress back when I said I won't pay for therapy anymore, and financially keep controlling him, and claimed that I'm preventing him from getting better. Not the jerk. Die on this hill, OP. Speak to a lawyer and see what your options are. As it stands, you have a kid, not a partner. Treat him accordingly. How can you be ready for the commitment of a relationship/marriage when you can't commit to going to work for a few hours? His parents should be homing him and helping him if he's that needy and they're so concerned for his recovery on your dollar. He's riding that gravy train hard. Don't let this continue, OP. This is ridiculous. Not the jerk. He's using you. I have mental health problems. Oh, do I? So I'm not unsympathetic. But no, put on your own oxygen mask first. Your own mental health does not need to suffer in order to help, pamper, or enable your husband. OP. Yeah, this is the reason I said he's living lavishly, at my expense even. I didn't want to be pushy about him finding a job, but right now I feel like he's using excuses, and my in-laws are calling me the unsupportive one after everything I've done. Not the jerk. You signed up for a partner, not a kid, and it's wrong for an adult to get their parents involved in their marital issues. I would go to this meeting and tell your husband and in-laws he can move back home to his parents if he doesn't want to be a responsible adult. My guess is his parents don't want him back, and that's why they're trying to get you to continue being his mother. Not the jerk. Honestly, you need to make sure this man doesn't have access to any of your finances. While he may seem to have done a 180, he's probably just spiraling still. He's getting his serotonin hit by accumulating stuff and via spending money. This won't stop. It will get worse until he actually deals with his issues. Honestly, if his mother wants him back, pack his bags and send him back to her. Pretty sure when he hits her credit cards for hundreds, she'll change her mind. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. If Reddit boy ever tried to pull that crap with me, he'd need a new head. Cold hard cash? Sure thing. Prefacing this with the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is petty as heck. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that. Absolutely adored it. She gave him a turtle ocarina once, and I love it. That should explain her gifting for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood-burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift whimsical, Grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, I don't know, just give me cold hard cash. Bad move. Very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives in a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift and was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is, until Grandma brought out a 2x2x2 squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurements might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very angry when it happened. This story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either. Oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing when brought into the room, and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice in mixed money, which were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in the house for the fear of water damage, so it was set in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't mess with Grandma and her whimsical presents. My sister dined and dashed at a restaurant. I refused to pay her bill and gave them her information. This happened last night. My sister and her boyfriend recently moved to a town next to mine. I was excited as we'll be able to see more of each other now. Nearby, there's a downtown center that has a lot of shopping, restaurants, galleries, etc. There's one upscale restaurant that both my husband and I love. A dinner for two will run you about $200 to $250, so it's not a place we frequently go to. My sister called me last week and invited us out to dinner with them at the restaurant last night. I reminded her it was an upscale place and to take a look at the menu beforehand because they are pricey and we can go somewhere else, tons of other great places. She said they still wanted to go. We hadn't been there in a while, so we accepted. Dinner was great. At the end of the meal, my sister excuses herself to the bathroom, and when she doesn't come back relatively soon, her boyfriend goes to find her. After a while, neither of them come back. We go to check for them, and they're gone. I call and text her, and she texts back that they've left, but thanks for dinner. It was just as amazing as you said it would be. I asked her what she meant, but no response. I texted again, asking if she really just stuck us with the bill, and no response. I then texted that I never agreed to pay for them, and that she had 30 minutes to come back to the restaurant, or I'll give the restaurant all her information, and they will likely involve the police. No response. At the 30-minute mark, I called and texted and got no response, so I stayed true to my word. I paid for mine and my husband's portion and gave all her information to the manager for their portion and then left. The next day, she called me back, upset that she's been getting calls from the restaurant asking her to come pay or they'll contact the police. I said I'm not surprised since she skipped out on her bill. She said she thought I was paying the tab since I've paid for our dinners in the past. I've paid for her plus me only dinners, where the total tab was $60 max. I said this was obviously different than the other times we met for dinner. This was all four of us, and at an upscale restaurant. I was not paying the $450 tab, and she had to cover her portion. I reminded her that she invited us out and chose the restaurant. I specifically asked if she wanted to go somewhere else, but she's the one who insisted on going to this restaurant. I never agreed to pay for everyone. She then said she thought I'd just pay, but when I asked the waiter for separate checks, she realized I wasn't and left for the bathroom planning to ditch. I said that since the restaurant hadn't contacted the police yet, all she had to do was go in and pay, and it would be settled. She didn't want to do that because it would be too embarrassing and asked me to cover it. I again said no and that she had to take care of it. Our family has gotten involved and I'm being pressured to just pay the bill. Am I the jerk if I don't and let the restaurant call the police? Clearly, I will not be paying for anything ever again. Edit. Only answering a few questions as I'm seeing that I'm not the jerk and it's only been less than an hour. This event really made me feel like a piggy bank and not a sister, which is the most upsetting. We are all early to mid-30s. She's never really been this terrible, but she has almost always found a way to bring my salary into conversations. For example, the first time I met her boyfriend, we were talking about cars as he just bought a brand new car. I said I'd like to get into a new car, but that I can't afford it right now. True, I'm a saver and not a spender. And her response was, "You make this much. You can definitely afford that car." This event really made me feel like a piggy bank and not a sister, which is the most upsetting. Not the jerk. Your sister and her boyfriend's behavior was so gross. It is commonly understood that the assumption is that the bill will be split unless previously agreed that one person is paying. Tell your family to pay her bill if they are so concerned. Not the jerk. Why doesn't the family that's pressuring you pay for the bill? Not the jerk. She admitted that when you asked for 2 checks, she decided to ditch you. She has to pay for her own meals. If she invited you to dinner and chose the restaurant, she should have known that you obviously weren't going to pay for her. She sounds really childish, and the family has no business to pressure you into paying her bill. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have given the restaurant your sister's information, or would you have just paid for her? Please let us know. I would have given them all of her info. She thinks she can use you, OP. Prove her wrong. Professor fails me because my group went ghost during group project. So I was in a speech class. It was my last semester, completely online due to lockdown. Our professor assigned us a group speech that we were to record and send to him by the due date. I thought it would be easy enough as he gave us 2 weeks to work on it and group speeches weren't anything new to me. He even made separate discussion boards for our groups that we could use to communicate. This project was worth 30% of our grades, so failing this project meant you would pretty much fail the course. I wanted to get it done early so we wouldn't have to worry about it, so I immediately post a message to everyone in the group asking when they were free to do a Zoom meeting to discuss the project. No reply for a few days by any of them. I then post again, this time a little more stern as it didn't seem any of them cared enough to even reply at all. I waited a few more days. At this point, we only had a week left before it was due, so I just divided up the work and posted what everyone would need to write their portion of the speech about and gave them a date/time that I would be holding a Zoom meeting for the final recording to send to the professor. Still no reply. It was now the day before the speech was to be recorded and 2 days before the speech was due, and my group members had not made an attempt to make contact in any form at all. So I did the only thing I could think of and emailed my professor explaining the situation. But I assumed he would not reply because throughout the entire semester, it took him over a week to reply to any emails I had sent him. I then did the entire group project on my own, which took me the entire night with no sleep. After I finished writing everyone's speech, it was around the time I had scheduled the Zoom meeting to record. I joined it out of amusement, knowing nobody in my group would be there. Sure enough, it was empty. So I did the entire speech myself. But the rubric really put emphasis on transitioning to the other group members, including saying their name. So between every section where it would cut to a different member, I would say something like, "And now, my name will explain the importance of blah blah blah." Then mute my screen briefly as if to add a cut, put on a different hat, and continue the speech. I did this for all 6 portions of the speech. I turned in the speech shortly after and filled out the group member role sheet that was due as well. I just put my name in every box that was supposed to be a different member. A week passes and I see he graded the project, still not replying to my previous email about the situation, by the way, and he gave me a 0, stating it was supposed to be a group project, and me doing it solo meant I did not follow instructions. I was actually infuriated by this and knew that emailing him about the grade was as good as useless, so I went straight above him to the board of college and explained to them what happened. They apologized and said the situation would be resolved, and within a few hours of me talking to the board, He had replied to my email 3 times, stating that he was very sorry for the miscommunication about the project and that my grade would be corrected. Scolded me for going above him, saying I should have just emailed him again if I couldn't get in contact with my classmates, and putting the blame on me for not trying harder to reach out to them. The next semester, I saw that he was no longer with the school. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Horrible professors are many in number and should all be sacked. My guess is that it was a habit of his to not reply to emails, and he got fired for it. Also, his corrected grade was a 70, but I was so mentally exhausted from the situation at that point that I didn't care to fight it anymore. Many professors believe that group projects are the closest you'll find to the real world, and they're probably right if they include real-world accountability. Where they go off track is when they fail to account for the fact that the individual student is paying for the class and should receive a grade based on their specific contributions and achievements. After all, there's no such thing as a group transcript or a group degree. It's unfair and unreasonable to punish a diligent student for the inaction of lazy students if they haven't simultaneously provided a mechanism for the diligent student to hold their lazy peers accountable. If one person manages to produce an adequate result in spite of others not doing their part, I'd give them maximum credit. If they produce a superior result, I'd give extra credit. If they were unable to produce a viable result and could demonstrate that this was primarily because others refused to participate, I'd simply not count that assignment as part of their final grade. What do you think about group projects? Did you like them when you were in school or hate them? Please let us know. Oh, I despised group projects. I also despised the jerks who assigned them. Am I the jerk for telling my mom if she doesn't stop buying things for my sister, I will uninvite her to my wedding? I'm getting married, and my 19-year-old sister is being ridiculous. She's very jealous of the attention my fiance is getting and trying to upstage her and compete. This all started when I proposed. I saved for a while because my fiance is a gorgeous girl and I wanted the ring to be really special. When we first saw my mom, she was showing it off and my sister got quiet and then left the room for a while. She didn't compliment it or say congratulations. At the next gathering with extended family, the ring got a lot of attention and my sister seemed sad. My mom ended up buying her a diamond bracelet with some sapphires. When I commented, my mom said it just seemed fair because she has my stepdad to buy her jewelry, my fiance has me, and my sister has no one. How to raise a Karen 101. Then my fiance invited them both wedding dress shopping. She said my sister was sulky at the appointment and kept saying she didn't feel good and laying her head on my mom. My fiance called my mom at some point to talk about colors and the family coordinating, and my mom said my sister already had a dress because she couldn't wait and showed us a very sparkly, very beaded lavender gown. My fiance told me she is familiar with that designer and my mom dropped some serious cash. At the bridal shower, my sister was sulky again and refused to eat, so my mom took her and left to buy her frozen yogurt because she was dizzy. The final straw was the bachelorette party. My sister and mom were invited to the dinner before the big party, and my sister wanted a $200 lobster. My mom told her that was rude since my future mother-in-law was paying, and then asked my mother-in-law if it would be okay if she, my mom, paid for my sister's dinner and bought her the lobster. The bridesmaids were lightly teasing my sister about how she's going to have to be my fiance's slave the day of, and my mom snapped at them very harshly that my sister doesn't have to do a thing. My sister ended up yelling that it's dumb that we're having so many parties, engagement, shower, bachelorette, and wedding, so pretty standard I think. She said we don't need all of those parties and it's just an excuse for attention. My fiance was hurt and shocked. I just found out that my mom threw a party for my sister the weekend after the bachelorette. She actually rented a beach house for my sister and her friends and paid for hair and makeup. To me, that is crazy. I called my mom and we got into it, and I told her she is enabling my sister's toxic jealousy, and if she keeps it up, she won't be invited to the wedding. My mom didn't say much, but sent me an angry text about how she has handed so much to me and no one ever did that for her. She worked for her money, and I will not tell her what to do with it. She can light it on fire if she wants to. I haven't responded. She also thinks this is fine and normal because my sister is going through a breakup. Gee, I wonder why old boy broke up with her. Not the jerk. Your mom is right, and she can spend her money how she wishes. She clearly chooses to use the money to buy love from your sister. Your sister is throwing temper tantrums because things are not about her, and your mom enables it 100%. I wouldn't invite them to the wedding because I guarantee your sister will pout and sulk until she gets whatever she is after, and your mom will ignore your day and focus on your sister. You and your other half deserve to have the day be about you, and not about a 19-year-old who was never taught to share the spotlight. Not the jerk. Your mother is enabling your sister, and I really fear for what extreme she is going to go with at the wedding to try to upstate your fiance. OP is lucky his sister isn't in a relationship. I can see this being one of those situations where she would get engaged at the wedding for the attention. Not the jerk. Are you sure your sister is 19? Because she's acting like she's 9. Let me condense it. Your younger sister likely gets most of the attention at home. Someone else is getting more attention than her now, you and your fiance. This made your younger sister so angry that she's purposely sabotaging all events by trying to act sick and make it so the attention is on her. Your mother is clearly the reason she's acting this way. She is funding a lavish dress and weekend for your younger sister. My advice, families get crazy around weddings. This wedding is about you and your fiance only. I would personally not allow your mom or sister near the bride on the wedding day and set boundaries ASAP. Edit. Don't uninvite your mom. I'd have a very clear conversation with your mother and your sister that the behavior of your sister at these events has been strange at best. I'm more concerned about your sister's behavior and not your mom spending her money on her. And you would like them to be supportive on your big day, especially with your fiance. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you uninvite your mom and sister from the wedding or not? Please let us know. Yeah, I think I'd uninvite them from my life, to be honest. You said 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I worked for a trucking company. They made sucrose for different food plants in the area, Turkey Hill, Pepsi, etc. My job was to wash the inside of the liquid sucrose trailers so they could be reloaded. This was done by hooking them up to an automated wash system. I drove the lot, picked up an empty trailer, took it to the 2-trailer wash bay building, hooked it up, and ran the cycle, then parked the wash trailer in the loading staged area. I was hired as a temp to replace the previous first shift guy who injured his knee. When I was hired, him and a guy who kinda knew the job taught me how to do it. But there was only the one official first shift person who knew the job. The other guy just kind of fumbled his way through it. Then there was a second shift guy who knew the job as well. The job required you to be extremely active. You worked in a room that would sometimes seem like it rained from all the steam condensing on the ceiling because you were washing 2 at a time with 190+ degree water for a 20-minute session. I ended up being hired full-time from the temp agency. The company actually bought out my contract because I was doing so well, and the first shift guy ended up retiring due to his injury. About a year later, the second shift guy quits out of nowhere, so they hire a new guy, and now I have to train him. This guy is less than good at the job. I keep telling management that, but you know, they're management. Eventually, he ends up dropping a trailer off at the lift truck before putting the lift down, bending the landing gear, and doing $11,000 in damage. Anytime there's an accident, they require a drug test. He tested positive and was fired. I ended up having to do first and second shift by myself since I was the only person who knew the job. It wasn't that bad because second shift didn't have as many trailers, so a 10-hour day and I'd usually be done. Eventually, they hired a new guy, very big fellow, and this didn't seem like a fit for him. About 3 months in, the loaders come over because there's no clean trailer staged. They found him passed out on top of a trailer. They honestly thought he had a heart attack or something, but it turned out he was just drunk, so he got fired. Guess who's back to working both shifts? At first, it wasn't too bad. I could get 4 trailers done in an hour, so 32 in an 8-hour shift, but only if I'm busting my tail. There was literally no way to do it any faster since there's a 20-minute wash cycle and you still have to pull 2 trailers in and hook them up. Normally, there were about 25 trailers for first shift and 8 to 10 for second shift. But then, a company that took 5+ dry trailers a shift for first and third, and 3 to 5 a shift for second, tripled their order for wet trailers due to their on-site processing plant shutting down. I went from 10-hour days to working 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. for like a month straight. In the summer, in a building that got about 10+ degrees hotter than the ambient air was, I kept telling my supervisor, my plant manager, and the company manager that I couldn't keep this up. I kept being told I had to do my job. Do as you're told. Well, the time I worked from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. Thursday and back in at 5:30 a.m. Friday, that was the day I caused $5,000 in damages. I backed a trailer out without unhooking it first, ruining the hoses, and pulling a pump off the mounts. So now I had to get drug tested, and since the last 2 guys failed, on the drive there, my manager asked me if I was going to fail. I said it depends what they test for. He said they test for everything. I asked if that included caffeine and exhaustion. He just kind of blankly looked at me, then turned back to the road. Drug test passed, taken back to work. Now I only have one wash bay to use due to the damage I caused, and I have to back into it because it's the first bay that's broken in a pull-through setup and maintenance is there repairing it. I ended up being there till almost 1 again. Monday I come in, having almost fell asleep on the drive. I pulled my manager aside, the plant manager aside, and the owner's son aside. They all said, I just gotta do the job I was hired to do what I'm told. They said they're working to find a new person, so I just need to keep doing my trailers. So Tuesday, that's what I did. When I was hired, I was told my schedule was from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and the trailers in that time slot were mine, along with the first 2 second shift trailers, if they were there by 2:30. So I got there at 7, did only the first shift trailers and second shift trailers as I was told when I got hired, and clocked out at 3 p.m. I shut my phone off and took my girlfriend to the fair. The next morning, I went in at 7 once again and got to work. The supervisor and plant manager get in at 9, and 9:05 they're in my office. I get escorted to the office of the owner's son, where he proceeded to chew me out for a solid 45 minutes. I just sat there and let him rant. Turns out, once I left, my supervisor and plant manager had to do my job. And since they were supervisors and plant managers, obviously they were trained in the position and knew exactly what to do. They managed to do 4 trailers from 5 p.m. when they realized I left until midnight. This is the same amount I could do in 1 hour. So once his rant was over, I said, "Well, clearly you're not going to fire me." He was taken aback. I continued, "You have no one who can do my job. You didn't take me seriously when I said I couldn't do it alone anymore, and so I decided I'd show you how important I was. I've got a kid and a life outside this job. The pay is great, but I'm not going to hurt myself to get it and put in 90 to 110-hour weeks in the dead of summer. You said 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. when I got hired. That was what I was told, so that's what I did. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me a raise and 3 weeks paid vacation. You're going to let me pick the guy who takes second shift. If you can't find someone willing to take second, I will train them on first and transfer to second when they're fully trained. But I'll get the shift differential on top of my raise if I do that." He looked at me like I just robbed him, but then after a solid 5 silent minutes, he agreed. See, each trailer that didn't get washed the night before was assessed a late fee by the company who it went to, anywhere from $500 to $5,000, and just last night, I had cost them $21,000 in fees. I think he realized that would quickly be a problem if they had no one to wash any trailers. We ended up pulling over the guy who kinda knew how to do the job from first shift that helped train me when I started there. He took first shift and I went to second. I ended up being the highest paid employee the wet department and any department that wasn't management or QC actually, in only 2 years of being there, when there were guys who had been loaders for 15 plus years. I stayed another year or so, but eventually it was more nonsense and I had my fill. Am I the jerk for customizing my burger? For my niece's 10th birthday, a few days ago we went to a restaurant. I'm pretty picky about food, so I thought it would be easier, rather than to complain about the burger place she wanted to go to, I'd just take along some of my own stuff. The actual meat is okay, but they do horrible, oversweet brioche and fancy named complex burgers, and it makes the food basically inedible. It's so disgusting. I ordered their most basic burger with just some lettuce and had brought my own bread, some cheese, and some barbecue sauce. Nobody said anything at the time. None of the staff cared, and honestly, I think the guys at the next table were pretty jealous. But afterwards, my sister told me I was being a total jerk and ruined the evening and drew all of the attention away from my niece on her birthday. My niece didn't seem unhappy. Basically, nobody commented beyond, "Haha, don't you want one of these fancy burgers?" I got to eat food that was actually edible, and I don't think I was being a jerk, but I don't know. Was my sister just being weird, or does she have a point? You're the jerk. And the staff may not have said anything, and if they were wait staff who are employees, they may not have cared because it doesn't affect them. But I guarantee that the restaurant owners and management would have cared if they were aware, because what you did is a massive legal liability for them. You don't bring your own food into an eating establishment, period. Trust me, I get the desire to do so. I'm not just picky, I am autistic with major food aversions. And over the course of my life, it has been a massive challenge for me to eat in certain places. But it's not just about being a jerk or socially inappropriate. Restaurants can be legally liable for what people eat on their premises and anything that happens to them as a result of ingesting those foods. So right from the outset, you're the jerk for putting their business at risk. On top of that, it's obnoxious to go into a place of business and literally bring for yourself the things they're trying to make a living selling. It implies to other customers that there is something problematic with the food that the restaurant is selling. It's actively raising questions about the quality of the business's product while you sit on their premises. So that also makes you the jerk. If you didn't like what they had to offer, you could have eaten before or after and just gone to be there for your niece. A restaurant isn't your personal kitchen table, it's a place of business. You don't get to walk in there and make yourself a meal with your own food for a myriad of reasons. You're the jerk, and shockingly lacking in social graces. You're the jerk, however, not to the point where you ruined an evening. You're asking if your sister was just being weird. No. The weird one was the person that stares back at you in the mirror first thing in the morning. Your actions weren't normal in any setting, not even close. If you keep this type of behavior up, you'll forever be known as the weird, eccentric, crazy cat lady auntie. I take offense at the crazy cat lady bit. Am I the jerk for firing my brother's girlfriend over the phone? I, 35 female, am the owner of a coffee shop. Linda, 23 female, is one of my employees who joined 6 months ago. 4 months ago, she met my older brother, who's 37, and they started dating. Ever since they started dating, Linda has been acting like she owns the place. She never comes on time and treats my other employees rudely. Every time I scold Linda, I end up receiving a call from my brother telling me not to pester his girlfriend. Recently, I've had enough. She's been shirking her responsibilities lately. Even after the holiday period ended, she chose not to show up. I called her up today, and she told me that she didn't feel like coming in. I've told her that I had enough and that I was finally going to fire her. I told her we only needed diligent employees here and that she was clearly not one of them. Hours later, my brother stormed into my house, yelling at me for firing his girlfriend. My husband kicked him out of the house, and I was honestly so annoyed. My parents think I'm the jerk for firing my brother's girlfriend and for kicking my brother out of our house. Am I the jerk? Update. I received a call from my brother, who's very upset as Linda has dumped him. He says that had I not fired Linda, he wouldn't have gotten dumped. To a certain degree, that may be true. However, if I hadn't fired Linda, that would have been only disadvantageous for my coffee shop business. I think this makes things very clear now. Well, if she wants to be fired in person, she should show up. Not the jerk. Should have done it sooner. And it doesn't sound like she would be an understanding person if being fired in person. Having drama and a person screaming in a business is quite bad for their image, especially a small business and a place where people go chill out and relax, like a coffee shop. Most people who see a scene like that between worker and owner just don't go back and comment on it when people mention that specific place. Quite bad for business. I usually don't agree with firing people over the phone, but in this case, the girlfriend made it necessary, and OP gave her brother too much leeway and power over her. She should have nipped that stuff in the bud when he started acting like the overlord of nothing. Not the jerk. Firing over the phone isn't fun, but it's not significantly different than firing in person. This isn't a breakup. You don't deserve a face-to-face chat. Not even every relationship requires that. How you did it doesn't matter. They're just mad you did it at all. Your brother is being a jerk. Your former employee is being a jerk. You're not a charity, you're a business owner. They crossed the line into treacherous grounds when they started dating and then crossed the line repeatedly by him injecting himself into employment matters and her trying to take advantage of you because she thought she had an in. Frankly, this was doomed to end badly no matter what the moment they hooked up. You must call if you are sick. No exceptions. Our department management, in their infinite wisdom, introduced a new rule that if you were sick, you had to call and speak to your TL at least 3 hours before your shift started. No exceptions, ever. Such was their intelligence, they announced this new, super well thought out rule in one of their email blasts containing so much dribble that no one ever actually read them. They were akin to internal spam, and we joked among ourselves that if the company's spam filters were any good, like our marketing team spins them to be, they'd get blocked. I'll admit, ignorance is no excuse, but I was definitely one of those people who ignored these emails, so I had no idea about the rule until a few days later when I had woken up feeling unwell. Now, my shifts that week started at 6 a.m., which meant I usually woke around 4:30 a.m., So once I knew I was too unwell, I sent a "sorry, but I'm unwell today, etc." email to my TL. I should mention here that prior to this new rule, an email was perfectly okay, though there was never a firm rule about a method, just as long as it was a reasonable notice. On the few occasions I'd had to call off sick before, never for a 6 a.m. start, I'd always made a phone call, an exception from previous jobs which I've always carried with me. This one time though, I figured, hey, it's 4:30 a.m. An email would be better received by my TL than waking up at stupid o'clock. Nope, wrong. Turns out my 4:30 a.m. email wasn't good enough, and I got hauled into a meeting with HR and my TL when I was back at work the next day. Of course, I accepted that I didn't read the email with the new rule. My bad. But when I tried to put forward my point about the unreasonable time to call, I was told that it was absolutely no excuse, that I should have been more responsible and called on time, that I was not being asked for my opinion on rules or policies, and that I had to follow them to the letter or else I'd face a formal warning, etc. They weren't going to budge, and I wasn't going to make this my hill to die on, so I let them have their moment and afterwards went back to my desk. I joked with a few colleagues that I would just set an extra alarm for 2:50 a.m. from then on, just in case, but I figured I would really play HR's game if that's what they wanted. I figured if I felt sick, I'd call by 3 a.m., else I'd go back to sleep and wake up at my usual time. Stupid, yes, but that's the rules. A few days later, I woke up to my first alarm feeling unwell again and knew I wasn't going to be fit for work come my scheduled start at 6 a.m. I certainly wouldn't admit to being happy and certainly wasn't uncontrollably smiling as I picked up my phone, called up my TL, and waited for an answer. Didn't get her the first time, surprise, surprise, so I figured I'd call again, just to be sure. This time I got lucky and heard a groggy "hello" on the other end. I gave the formalities, told her I was off sick again, and hung up. I could tell she was positively thrilled to be woken up so early, but hey, it's what they wanted. The next day I was fine and was back at work without drama. But the next day, a stomach bug hit the office and my entire team, TL included, all rostered on for 6 a.m. starts that week, ended up leaving early. I'm sure you can paint the rest of this picture. Cue 2 days of 3 a.m. phone calls from every one of the 10 people in my team. Cue my TL getting more upset with each one. Cue HR adding a small bit to the next week's usual dribble mail. I was sure to read this one, not rescinding the rule, but instead patting themselves on the back for coming up with the addition of sending a short email to your TL is now also a suitable form of advising illness. Such intelligence. I worked there for another 4 months before moving on to much greener pastures and was sick only a few more occasions during that period, all of which were for 6 a.m. starts and all of which I was sure to ring at 3 a.m. Hey, that's what the rule said. You continued to call your TL after being informed an email is acceptable? Good. That 3-hour notification is important. You never know when an email will be read. Truly better to call and know your TL is well informed. OP. That's what I figured. And if I had to be awake at 3 a.m., then I don't see why she didn't have to be as well. She was paid more than me after all. In fairness, once I started the 3 a.m. wake-up routine, I liked it because I started going to the gym before work. Don't tell her that though. Karen keeps stealing my food, so I installed a camera. I, female 20, live in a shared house with 3 other girls. I will call them Sarah, Kate, and Zoe. Kate is friends with Zoe. The rest of us aren't really friends. Whilst I'm on okay terms with Sarah and Zoe, I've never really liked Kate. We have a shared fridge where we have a shelf for each of our stuff. I have noticed that my food and milk constantly go missing. I see multiple times a week that a large portion of my food and milk is gone. It's unbelievably frustrating and also very time-consuming and expensive having to buy and cook new food. I always believed it was Kate because 1, she is awake late in the night, 1 to 4 a.m. I'm asleep then, and I tend to notice my stuff missing in the morning. 2, I've asked all of them about it. Sarah and Zoe both deny taking my stuff, but Kate gets all defensive and says I shouldn't accuse her when I have no proof. I was complaining about it to my friend, and he said he was in a similar situation and he got a fridge camera. I thought this was a great idea. I got one, placed it discreetly inside the fridge, and decided to wait a week. Sure enough, it was Kate, raiding my food daily. I confronted her about it because now I had proof. I showed her the footage, told her to never do it again and that she should repay me for what she took. She completely lost it. She said, how dare I put a camera in the shared kitchen without asking the others first, and how it's so invasive to record others in their own home. I explained the camera only recorded the inside of the fridge, not the whole kitchen, but she didn't care, and has since said she'll never be able to feel safe in her own home again. Zoe has sided with her, and they're both calling me a jerk and saying I should have asked everyone first, even though this would have defeated the whole purpose. I said none of this would have happened if Kate hadn't been stealing my food and lying about it. Sarah has taken my side, so it's pretty tense in the house at the moment. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Kate, how dare you procure evidence of my stealing to back off your charges? This is an outrage. Do not apologize. You should insist to the other roommates that Kate should apologize and pay you back or move out. More than do not apologize. Don't even engage. If they bring up the camera, ask, why were you stealing from me? When will you be paying me back for stealing from me? If they say they don't feel safe, ask, why were you stealing from me? When will you be paying me back from stealing from me? If her friend comes at you, ask her, why was she stealing from me? Don't even begin to address the camera. Don't respond to any complaints about it directly. Keep emphasizing to everyone who lives there that this is about theft and nothing else. OP, I appreciate this advice. I do feel like during this whole saga, Kate's original wrongdoings, the theft, have been swept under the rug. For the record, Kate has hardly mentioned the theft at all, hasn't apologized, and when I asked her to pay me back, said she's not paying me anything. Zoe hasn't mentioned it either, and Sarah is staying out of it, although she said she agrees with me. I think it's a good idea to reshift the focus back to the original issue. Thanks. I'm glad it helps. It isn't surprising to me that Kate would be trying to focus the blame on you. She stole from you, lied about it, and was caught red-handed. Her only recourse to avoid the truth is to try and control the narrative and push the blame onto you for something else. Important not to let that happen. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her roommate? Please let us know. I would have put something special in my food to teach her a lesson, and I'm not talking about laxatives. Brother crashed my car, gets a night in jail he won't forget. I, 21, male, have an older brother, Dave, fake name, that has always been a jerk to me. There's only a 1-year gap between us, but he liked to fight when we were kids, and he always acted like anything that was mine was also his. He was also somewhat the golden child, which made me miserable. So, no surprise, I moved out at 18. My uncle is a now retired police officer, and he took me in after I left home. He even hooked me up with a decommissioned Crown Vic. I absolutely love that car. I don't know why, but Dave hated the fact I had that car. He drove 3 beater cars into the ground while my Crown Vic kept chugging along. Well, after his 3rd car finally ended when he drove it into a pole, he asked to borrow my car. I had a bad feeling and said I wasn't going to do that. He called me entitled and said he needed a car to get to work. I told him to take the bus because I know how he drives and my Crown Vic was off limits. My parents called me after that and told me to just lend him my car. I said I won't no matter what they say. I rely on that car and I need it as well since it's my personal transportation. Dave wasn't the only one in the world with a job he needed to get to. My uncle congratulated me for standing up to them and gave me a high five. A few days later, when I got off work, the car wasn't where I parked it. I called my brother's cell, but he didn't pick up. Then I called my parents and asked them if he took my car. They denied it. So I said I was going to call the cops, and then they admitted he had borrowed it because he needed it. I told them he better bring it back right now or I'll have the police looking for him. They called me a jerk and then phoned Dave to bring my car back. He showed back up in the parking lot in my car 20 minutes later. I demanded to know how he stole my car, and he held up a set of police Crown Vic keys he had bought online. Some were made universal. I told him if he ever stole my car again, I'd have him arrested. Then he had the audacity to ask for a ride home. I told him he made me wait in the December cold after stealing my car so he could walk. He called me a jerk before I drove away. After that, my uncle installed a tracking device in the car. When Christmas Day came, I was celebrating with family like every year. The roads were cold and icy, so I had to be very careful while driving. By now, you're probably clued in on the title. Yeah, Dave borrowed my car again during the Christmas party. Apparently, he decided he was going to go pick up a friend and figured I wouldn't notice. But I did when I looked out the front window and saw my car was missing. I pulled up the tracking app and saw he was a few miles away, then called his cell to yell at him. Everyone in the party saw this and asked what was going on. I said, "Dave stole my car again," and my uncle confirmed it wasn't the first time. Dave told me over the phone to buzz off and he'd be back soon. I said he better not have been drinking, but he just hung up on me. Well, while I was watching the tracker app, the dot stopped and didn't move for a while. Soon we got a panicked call from Dave asking for help. He had crashed the car because he couldn't handle the icy roads and he wasn't used to a rear-wheel drive vehicle. So we piled in my parents' minivan and followed the tracker. We found Dave by the road and my Crown Vic nose deep in a snow-filled ditch. My uncle was furious as it was formerly a car of his department, and I was mad as heck at Dave for stealing my car again. My parents wanted me to let it go, but I said enough was enough and was gonna call the police. Dave begged me not to because he really had been drinking before he set off and would get a DUI. I said he was gonna pay me back for my car then, or I'd sue him. Well, as luck would have it, police were already aware of the accident and were driving in to check on the scene. Someone else had called them, I guess. My parents tried to say that I was the one driving the car and they were just there to help me. I said that wasn't true and my uncle backed me up. In fact, one of the cops that was there recognized my uncle and they had a chat. Then they went to Dave and asked to see his license, which I then found out was suspended after he had crashed his previous car. Then they breath tested him. He wound up with cuffs slapped on his wrists while my mother was crying and begging the police not to take him away. But the officer just said that she and my dad could get arrested too for lying to police. That shut my parents up, and we got back in the minivan. The Christmas party was ended early, and my parents drove me and my uncle home since he rode with me. They didn't say much to either of us the whole drive and just sped away as soon as we were out of their van. They nearly slipped off the road themselves doing that. My brother was let out of jail the next day, and he looked so scared that he was practically crying. The cops there had scared him a bit while talking about prison and the crap they had seen go on there. That's when my uncle started cracking up and revealed to us that his friends in the department never filed the DUI and just the charge for the suspended license, which was about a $600 fee. My uncle said he just wanted to teach Dave a lesson, and this would be the one and only time he'd ever get his help. Dave then apologized to me and said he'd pay me to have my Crown Vic fixed and would never touch it again. When it got pulled out of the ditch, the front end damage was actually minor. It needs a new front bumper, a headlight, and a grille. The damage was just superficial, thankfully. My parents have pretty much glossed over the whole incident and act like it didn't happen. Dave gave me the extra Crown Vic keys he had bought online and said this had taught him a lesson he won't soon forget. Your parents are enabling jerks, and your brother is the golden child that can't possibly do anything wrong. I'm glad he got a reality check, but your parents are a lost cause by now. Uncle sounds great. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my fiance? My fiance, 28 male, and I, 30 female, have been together for 3 years. I used to live close to work and used public transportation, but after I moved into his house, which is hours away from work, I bought myself a car since I'm a nurse, and also since there aren't any hospitals close to where we live that I could transfer to. My fiance's car hadn't been working for close to 2 months now. It requires so much money to get it fixed, and he refused my financial help when I offered it. Instead, he would ask to use my car every now and then, and I agreed as long as it's when I'm not working, and also since he only uses it for trips to the supermarket, etc. On New Year's Eve, he told me he wanted to use my car to go hang out with his friends and celebrate, but I declined because I had to cover a night shift and needed my car to travel to work. He insisted and even suggested I take the night off or swap shifts with another nurse, but I couldn't do that last minute. I thought he dropped it then, but when I went into the shower and got out, I couldn't find him nor my car. I freaked out and started calling for half an hour, but he didn't answer me. I tried again until one of his friends picked up. I demanded he give the phone to my fiance, but he said they were out and confirmed he took my car and told me that my fiance said that it's better that I skip my shift and he'll be back with my car later. I couldn't take it. I felt so enraged. I had my fiance on the phone telling him I did not consent for him to take my car to go hang out with friends and said I'd call the police to get it back if he refused to come back with it. But he didn't take me seriously, so I ended up calling the police, and he and his friends were picked up at the bar where they were hanging out. Then they were taken to the police department. I got my car from there and still went to my shift. My fiance was let go hours after I left, and he blew up my phone with missed calls and texts about how I was out of my mind to call the police on him and put him in this situation. I did not respond, but when I got off work the next day, we got into an argument, and he said he couldn't believe I'd do this to him. But I told him he made me do this, to which he responded that I was petty and callous because not only did I ruin his New Year's celebration, but all his friends aren't speaking to him after I put them in this situation as well, and he then kept giving me the silent treatment. I did consider this a form of theft, especially since he went behind my back after getting a no from me. But he was shocked that I'd even imply that he was a thief and said what's yours is mine and vice versa, so I shouldn't be using the terms theft and stealing. Not the jerk. Girl, why are you with a man who cannot take care of his own basic needs and insists that you call off work so he can go party? He's using you, and you can do way better. Do not offer financial help to people like this either. He has money to go out with his friends, then he has money for a car. ETA, his friends put themselves in this situation by getting into a stolen car. Do you really think they weren't all sitting around laughing at you before this happened? Please, oh please, tell us you dumped him. He has shown you who he is. Believe him. He has zero respect for you, your needs, or your property. You would experience more of this in the future. Is this how you want to live your life? And his friends are just like him. You deserve so much more. Not the jerk. Yeah, OP's fiance is a total jerk. Why should she continue her relationship with someone like him? OP, reconsider your relationship. He thinks he's entitled to your car. Respect each other's boundaries. That's the first step in a relationship. He refused to fix his car and instead used OP's car, even after she offered to help him financially. And somehow he thinks his wants should be prioritized? If you want a car whenever, use your own. He tried to convince OP to skip work because he wants to celebrate, and she's a nurse covering night shift. He stole OP's property and blew up on her for simply using her car. He allowed his friends, who, like him, lack any responsibility, to treat OP badly, even though she's the one supporting him in their relationship. OP, dump him. He's tried to manipulate you into skipping work before, and he's stealing your car, knowing well it's going to make you miss work. He doesn't respect you, your car, your job, or your boundaries. Your property, your rules, you're not the one to blame, but you will be if you stay with this man any longer. You need to respect yourself more than that. You deserve better than a thief who doesn't respect you. I set a glitter trap to catch my mother-in-law trying to snoop. For some weird reason, my mother-in-law really wants to go into our bedroom whenever she comes over. On one occasion, I followed her as she went upstairs. I was going to get something for my kid as the bedrooms are upstairs, and she walked past the bathroom on the main floor and up the stairs behind it. She didn't hear me, and I caught her walking straight into my room and rifling through bills on my dresser. She denied snooping, even though I just watched her do it, and said she was just going to use our bathroom because she couldn't find the other ones. She walked right past the one on the main floor and another one in the upstairs hallway to go into our bedroom. Since that happened, I installed an exterior doorknob that requires a key on our bedroom door and one on the door to our office/spare bedroom. However, she's still always forgetting where the bathroom is and trying to use the bedroom and office door. This really ticks me off. My husband says that I just get annoyed at this because everything she does drives me crazy, and since we've put locks on the rooms we don't want her in, there isn't really a problem anymore. Well, over the holidays, we had my in-laws over for dinner, and before they came, I was searching for the bedroom keys. We hadn't used them in a while since we only lock the doors when mother-in-law comes over. My husband told me we didn't need to lock the doors since she wouldn't try to get into the rooms, and I insisted that she would because she loves to snoop. We went back and forth and decided to cover the doorknobs in super fine glitter to see if she tried them. I did this once before when husband didn't believe me about the snooping to prove she'd been in the rooms. Last time she ignored the glitter and we didn't say anything about it, but then my husband couldn't deny that she'd tried to snoop. So this time I covered the knobs in glitter and for the office went a touch further and rigged a little folder of glitter over the door to the office before the in-laws came over. French doors. And it was set so if you walked into the room, you would get covered in glitter. Husband goes out of his way to show his mom the main floor bathroom when they got here and specifically asks his parents and sister not to go upstairs. There's a baby gate, so the kids can't get upstairs either. Well, guess who had to go to the bathroom and got covered in glitter and had it all over their hands and hair? She completely lost it and started screaming at me. So I yelled back, and now my husband is saying I went too far and I'm the jerk. Mother-in-law also says I'm the jerk, but sister-in-law says I didn't do anything wrong, and mother-in-law deserved it for snooping. Father-in-law is Switzerland. Apparently her car is ruined now too, because it's covered in glitter that she can't get cleaned up. So, am I the jerk? ETA. I can't believe this blew up, and I wanted to say thank you for all the support and the awards. My husband woke up and found this post, and I think the comments have been an eye-opener. We are going to start couples therapy in January, so I think that will be great for us. I will be ordering some cellulose glitter that is biodegradable and safer for future projects. If she comes over again, I will set up a camera, or at least print out some fun fake documents, so if she snoops again, she can at least find something interesting. Not the jerk. Your mother-in-law is an issue, but the fact that your husband refuses to set and enforce boundaries with her is actually the larger issue here. Not the jerk. I had a good laugh at this. I feel like you did a good job leading up to this and were incredibly patient with a boundary-stomping mother-in-law. My petty self doesn't see this as your fault. I mean, sure, we know you set a trap for her, but she had been explicitly told time and time again to not go into those rooms. I mean, how were you really supposed to know she would ruin your nice and neat glitter envelope that you worked so hard on and accidentally left on the top door of the office? The way I see it, she owes you an apology because her recklessness got glitter all over your floors and you now have to refill your special glitter envelope. Not the jerk, but you missed out on the perfect opportunity to spread disinformation. Make up fun documents to leave hidden on your desk about how you're helping the UN with a crisis, or leave out fake letters from heads of state or whoever her favorite famous person is. If she's gonna snoop, have fun with it. OP, this is a great idea. I might do something like this next time, as I'm sure we have several next times in the future before we make and maintain progress with her. Make a folder with a list of nursing homes and put her name on it. Do this, but make it an email with your husband's name attached. Dear Mr. OP, here are the senior homes we were able to find for your mother. Her memory has been declining for quite some time. She can't even remember where the bathroom is. It is of great concern, and we believe a nursing home would be the best course of action. Am I the jerk for refusing to leave my boyfriend's birthday party that I arranged? So for context, I'm 29, female. My boyfriend is 34. He's a doctor. Most of his friends are from work, and they all seem to dislike me and act distant, maybe because I'm not a doctor too. I don't know, and don't care honestly. Since we started dating, they've been asking to hang out without me, and they leave any event I'm at. My boyfriend said they're just taking their time to get used to me. Anyways, his birthday was days ago. I had arranged for the party and paid for everything. It wasn't a surprise since the party was held at the restaurant, and he needed heads up so he could invite his doctor friends. We got there, then his friends started arriving. They came to greet him and started shaking his hand and hugging him, while completely ignoring me, though I was there next to him. The tension started when one of them started making remarks about the way I dressed. I sucked it up, but another friend started interrogating me about my degree, then implying I was ignorant for my food choice. What the heck? An hour later, another one asked if I could leave because they wanted to discuss work stuff and it's confidential. I was so shocked, I laughed, asking why he thought it was appropriate to discuss work during a party, and he replied that I had an attitude. An argument ensued, and they had demanded that I leave, but I said absolutely not. My boyfriend finally spoke up after it escalated and asked that I keep the peace and go home, but I refused and reminded him and let his friends know that I had arranged for this party and paid for it, and so they should leave since they're just guests. He pulled me aside and begged I go home, after they said if I don't leave, then they will, but I still refused. They left, all of them, and the party was cut short. My boyfriend was upset and started complaining at home that I ruined his birthday the minute I started arguing with his friends. I told him they were being disrespectful to me, but he said I was wrong too, because they said they wanted to discuss medical stuff, and I should have respected that and not made it personal. He's not speaking to me now. I was so hurt I couldn't argue anymore. I felt like I ruined his birthday by making a scene like he said and acting passive-aggressive. Am I the jerk? Edit to say that the reason I refused to leave was because I figured they used the medical stuff discussion as an excuse to get me to leave early. Use that red flag as a cape and fly away. Not the jerk. It's more about jerk friends and boyfriend than being a doctor. I promise you, if OP's boyfriend and his boys were carpenters or bankers, they would have the exact same problem. Except now it's top secret bank information or some crap. It's not about doctors being the superior occupation, it's about them being condescending, disrespectful, and total jerks. Not to mention unethical. If that stuff is so private his girlfriend shouldn't hear it, they're probably committing a HIPAA violation. At a public restaurant, packed with people mind you. OP, girl, run. You know you can do much, much better than someone who uses you to finance their party, then does you over for their jerk friends. Not the jerk. What type of boyfriend asks you to leave the birthday dinner you paid for? Feel the joy that you ruined his stupid birthday and dump him ASAP. Exactly. He's a dimwit if he doesn't see their issues. Letting him speak to her in those manners was all too telling. OP. He says he's aware of the tension between me and his friends, but keeps asking me to be understanding and give them time to get used to me being around. Honestly, I don't even know what that means. Don't know why they see me as if I'm less than. Maybe they're all guys and I'm a girl, so they're not comfortable around me. Maybe because of my job. I didn't care then, but now it's starting to affect my relationship with my boyfriend. Honey, there is no time to get used to you. They either accept you for who you are or not. If they haven't accepted you, then either your dude needs new friends or you need to throw the whole dude out. Forget that garbage of being made to feel less than. If he can't understand that, then he's not the dude for you. You deserve the utmost respect, period. Not the jerk. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. He chose his friends, although you arranged everything. Asking you to leave was incredibly rude, and that is without you hosting. You deserve someone who treats you better. OP. You know, I doubt they wanted to talk about work, but this was rather an excuse they used to get me to leave early. It's incredibly hurtful, seeing they've tried excluding me before, although I've been nothing but civil and respectful with them. My boyfriend's defense for justification for their behavior is that they're just getting used to me, but I doubt it. Well, what do you think? Should OP break up with her boyfriend or not? Please let us know. I'd marry him first, just for a year or two. There'd be a nice fat paycheck at the end of it. Angry man yells at us for sitting in his seats. Staff sides with us and kicks him off the train. I had an incident on the train last week, and it's been bothering me since it happened. I'm wondering whether or not I was the jerk. My family are split, and the whole situation was upsetting and left me pretty shaken. I was traveling down to visit my uncle for New Year, who had been struggling with cancer and who couldn't spend time with the whole family during Christmas. I had to take the train with my two kids, ages 4 and 7, and it was a pretty last-minute booking as we weren't sure if me and my kids were going to be able to go. It was about a 7-hour trip all about, with about 4 of that on the train, and my kids were really tired and everything was a bit overwhelming, so I didn't see a problem with sitting in the seats marked as reserved whilst the train was still pretty empty. The journey was quiet. We got to have a bit of rest and have a few drinks and some food, which the kids appreciated since it was such a long day for them. When people came on looking for their seats, I stayed quiet and hoped their seats weren't ours. A man walked up and down the train a few times before starting to ask people if they could move, so he could see the numbers on their headrests, which I thought was pretty rude when he could easily have just sat in another seat for now. The train wasn't that full. Anyway, it turned out that my daughter was sitting in the seat this guy had reserved, and when he aggressively said to her that she was in his seat, she kind of looked a bit startled and looked to me. I had been watching this guy be rude to other passengers, and I was pretty angry that he'd speak to my daughter the same way, rather than look to me and ask politely. She's 7 and is obviously with me. I told her to stay where she was, as there weren't any other seats she could move to that were next to me, and suggested he sit somewhere else, as there were more than a few seats dotted around. He goes off muttering, and I assumed he was going to sit down, but he came back a few minutes later with a member of staff and was shouting at this point how we had stolen his seats that he had paid money for, and we weren't even supposed to be on the train. The lady checked our tickets, and I explained to her that we were just tired and didn't think it would have been a problem to sit in the seats whilst the train wasn't full. To his fury, the woman told us not to worry and also suggested that he sit elsewhere. He started shouting about how we had stolen his seat and kids weren't above the law. Long story short, he was told that he needed to get off the train at the next stop as he wasn't welcome on the service. At this point, both of my kids were pretty shaken, and I regretted the whole journey, but wasn't sure what I could even do at this point. Was I the jerk here for creating this situation? Part of me thinks this man was just crazy and was going to cause an argument with somebody, even if it wasn't us, but I'm not sure. You're the jerk. He paid for that seat, and your level of entitlement is staggering. I'm honestly shocked that the staff member sided so blatantly with you. If the train wasn't that full, why would you sit in the reserved spots? I honestly think the staff sided with her because this man had gotten loud. If he hadn't, I think OP would have been made to move. Not that I agree with OP, but so many people forget that they can be right but ruin their chances through anger. This is so true. For all we know, this guy was already having a super bad day, so this may have pushed him over the edge. It's still not right to yell at kids though, but it also has me wondering if that even happened. From the sounds of OP's post, she was really just looking for clout, so maybe she embellished the story by adding that he yelled at her daughter and threw off blame. You're the jerk. You were in stolen seats, saw this guy trying to find his seats, said nothing even though you suspected you were in his seats, then refused to move when he figured it out. You are absolutely the problem. I have 3 kids and might have sat there when it was empty, but seeing him searching for his seat, I would have spoken up right then and asked if we were one of his seats. OP, you're the jerk, a huge one. You're the jerk. The entitlement is mind-boggling. You knew those weren't your seats. You knew that man was looking for his seat. Do you think maybe he was in a mood because he was tired and had a crappy day, and on top of that couldn't find his seat because you were in his seat? I'm blinded by the entitlement and how deliberately obtuse you were. You complain in detail about how he was inconveniencing all those other people looking for his seat, and all you had to do was reach out to him. You're having this pity party about what a long, hard trip it was, your uncle, yada yada yada, all to make us feel sorry for you so we can get all on board with how righteous your actions were, how in truth you were entitled to those seats. How dare that man expect to sit in that seat? You were more deserving. You are such a huge jerk. You took his seat and upset him so bad that he got kicked off the train. Everyone has issues. Everyone has crap they carry around. While you were busy calculating how you deserved that man's seat, did you ever think maybe he'd had an awful day? He was sick. He'd lost a loved one. Am I the jerk for making my friend upset by revealing how long it took for me to lose weight and how I lost it? I recently lost 40 pounds in the last 4 months. I feel like I'm under the healthy category for the first time in my life. A friend whom I haven't seen in over a year had to come to my city for a work-related thing. She asked me if she could stay with me and my husband. I readily agreed. In the past, every time she visited, she usually meets up with me, but prefers to stay in the hotel as that was more comfortable for her. I asked her if everything was okay. She told me that she's been dieting for the past 1 year and that she wants to stay in a place where she will be able to cook and exercise and not a hotel. I excitedly told her that even I had started dieting and exercising. She finally arrived. She was a little shocked at how much weight I had lost. I welcomed her and we got to talking. She told me that she has only lost 5 pounds and it was surprising that I lost so much. I consoled her that everyone was different and she shouldn't be discouraged. She woke up early the next day to go running and to do some cardio. I, on the other hand, slept in. I generally do intermittent fasting and walk up to 30K steps a day. I do not do any exercises other than that. My friend, however, was way more active and I was really proud of her and in awe. However, at night she was kind of mad at me and asked me whether I was having a cheat day. I told her no. She asked if walking was all I did. I told her yes. She asked me how long I'd been doing this. I told her 4 months. She blew up at me. She started crying and shouting about how unfair it was that she couldn't lose any significant weight after doing so much for a year while I lost everything so easily. I was kind of shocked, but I told her that she wasn't being fair to herself and that her stamina has improved and weight isn't the only indication of her exercise. But then she kept screaming, and I told her not to yell at me at my home. I told her that she can either stop or she can leave. She left in the end. I didn't speak to her for a couple of days, but she posted a picture of herself. It looked like she started binging on lots of fast food and captioned it, "It doesn't matter what I eat, so I am not going to care anymore." I feel terrible that I have inadvertently stopped her/discouraged her even though I didn't mean to. Am I the jerk here? Is there something I should have done differently? I'm leaving everything I own to my goddaughter instead of my daughter. I, 45 female, divorced my ex-husband when my daughter, Kelly, who's 21 female, was around 12, after I caught him cheating for the second time. Literally everyone was against it, and I knew the in-laws wouldn't like it because they're traditional conservatives who didn't want to deal with a public scandal. But it was hurtful to me that my own family was trying to pressure me to stay in the marriage in order to not lose access to the money and perks my ex had provided. Examples: while we were married, my ex helped my brother get a nice job with a high salary and nice benefits, paid off my sister's credit card debt, and bought my parents really lavish gifts. The first time I caught him cheating, I wanted out back then, but my family convinced me to forgive him and that I owed it to Kelly to fight for her to have the stability of a two-parent household. My daughter was only a few weeks old at the time, and I was in a very vulnerable state at the time, so I agreed and felt stupid when my ex did it again. This time, I wasn't going to be deterred and continued with the divorce. In truth, I wanted to keep Kelly out of this as much as possible, but my in-laws and my own parents turned her against me by painting me as a hypocrite for telling her how important forgiveness is, but that I wasn't willing to forgive Daddy even when he was really sorry. I was distraught. I honestly don't think I would have made it through it if it weren't for my best friend, Tina, who was my rock. In the end, I got a nice settlement and some alimony, but didn't get custody. I tried my hardest to still be in Kelly's life, but by the time she was a teen, she was fully convinced that I was the bad guy and told the courts she didn't want to see me anymore. I was heartbroken, but kept reaching out. During that time, I also managed to go back to school. I was studying accounting and managed to get a high-paying job of my own and have a nice life for myself. The same can't be said for my ex, who was sued by a former employee and fired by his company. Because he was so embarrassed, my ex burned through his savings trying to keep up his lifestyle, which included Kelly's college fund. Suddenly, she wanted contact again, and I won't lie and say that I wasn't hurt at the idea of her only wanting contact was for my money, and agreed to pay for her to go to grad school on the condition that she sign an agreement that she won't contest my will, where I'm leaving most of what I owned to Tina's daughter, Laura, who's 18. The few relatives that I'm still on good terms with think that this will damage any chance at rebuilding a relationship with Kelly and that I should just split everything equally. However, I don't want to have the type of relationship with Kelly that I feel like I have to pay for. Am I the jerk? Edit. 1. I didn't get custody, but I did get visitation, and when Kelly was 14 to 15, she told the courts she didn't want to visit me anymore. 2. My ex came from money and had a good income, which meant he had better lawyers and the aid of my brother and parents during the divorce. 3. Not too long after the divorce, my brother lost his job. I'm not sure what happened, and I never cared to ask. 4. I'm no contact with my brother and very low contact with my parents and sister. 5. Tina is my documented POA should there ever be a situation where I can't make legal decisions for myself and vice versa. 6. Alimony is not child support, so that's why I was able to get it. Not the jerk. Your daughter has always been against you because of your family, and now the moment when things aren't looking good, she wants contact. Ignore her. And your family basically wanted you to stay because they wanted his money. Not the jerk. I don't understand the entitlement where kids think they are owed what their parents had after they pass. None of what's yours belongs to anyone else unless you give it to them. And if that's a problem with someone, then it shows where they see the true value in a relationship with you. If you want to leave everything to your goddaughter, do it. If that's an issue for your biological daughter, then that should cement what you're already thinking about why she's reached back out to you in the first place. It hurts, and I empathize with that. Just know you aren't obligated to do anything you don't want to in this situation, despite the guilt and judgment you may face. Well, what do you think? Should OP leave anything for her biological daughter or just her goddaughter? Please let us know. I'd leave biological daughter $1 in my will. That way she can't try to fight for anything else. I was told to do what an executive told me in a precast concrete plant. Some background first. I worked for a precast concrete company as a job in between high school and college. The job sucked, but it paid well. We made a lot of the massive storm culverts and tunnel pieces that are dropped in place during construction instead of being made where they are. To put this in perspective, our largest casting form could handle pieces 40 feet by 30 feet. Absolutely massive pieces. After a few weeks of working for this company, I was trained to run the industrial concrete mixer and did this every day. This mixer was 3 stories tall, mixed up to 4.5 cubic yards of concrete at a time, and was the most beat-up machine in the entire plant, which was saying something. It ran 6 days a week, 2 shifts a day, and was never maintained, because the company couldn't get techs to come out on Sunday, its only day not running, and didn't want to lose a work shift to get it maintained. The only good thing about it was that all the materials were weighed and fed in automatically. All it took was a button to start the process. The most common problem was the bottom release door not sealing correctly. It would be just barely cracked, allowing all the water to run out of it, resulting in an unusable chunky mess that would need to be dumped in a scrap hole instead of being used. If this happened, the mess needed to be dumped out of the mixer quickly before it could partially harden inside the mixer. This only happened once that I was there, and it took an entire shift to chisel the stuff out. We put a mark in the sliding door to show where it should be versus where it would be when it didn't seal. The process worked like this. A cage of rebar and anchor points was constructed on a base around a core and a form bolted around it. The QA guy signed off, and the form was then filled with concrete and left to cure. The curing time largely depends on the ambient temperature. The hotter it is, the faster it cures, and vice versa. Once the piece has cured enough to be lifted, the form is stripped and the piece lifted by crane off the core. Repeat until you have as many pieces ordered. Another thing to note is hard hat colors. They were color-coded according to your role. Blue are plant supervisors, green QA, red the foreman, etc. For the normal workers, there was a choice of 2 colors. Yellow for people who don't know what they're doing, typically new or dumb people, and gray for those that do. This was about 5 months into my time with them, and I had just got a gray one maybe 2 months before. Onto the story. Our plant was starting to produce pieces at a substantially slower rate than the other plant owned by the company. We were working 10 to 12-hour days every day to try and make up the difference. Typically, multiple pieces were made per form, per day 2 to 4. We were only managing 1 and maybe 2 per form per day. To figure out the reason for this, the owner's plan was to send an executive from the main office to observe and time every section of the process in our plant. This in itself was silly. Remember how I said the speed concrete cures is based on temperature? Our plant was in an unheated warehouse in a state bordering Canada, in the winter. The other plant was in Florida. Can you guess why production was a bit slower in our plant? In any case, during the shift meeting before the executive got there, our foreman's exact words were, "Do what he tells you. Otherwise, stay the heck away from him." Wonderful. The shift proceeds as normal. Building cages and forms get bolted. Maybe 6 hours into the shift, I climb up on top of the mixer to the platform and I'm greeted by the executive in the shiniest white hard hat I've ever seen, and office attire, complete with black dress shoes, in a concrete plant. He looked bored out of his mind. He asked me something to the effect of if I was looking forwards to the end of the shift in 2 hours. I told him that with no problems, we might get to leave in 4 hours. He got the most defeated look on his face and mumbled something that I didn't catch. I went through the pre-checks on the mixer and found the bottom door was once again not closing properly. I yelled down to the plant supervisor that the door wasn't sealing again and that the machine would be down until I got it to seal, normally by chipping the concrete left by the previous shift after using the mixer away from the opening. The plant supervisor yelled back a few choice words directed at the mixer and stormed into his office. The executive had a look and said he thought the door looked fine. I told him that it did this a lot and that it wasn't sealed, pointed out the mark to him, and went to get the tool I bribed a fabricator with energy drinks to make me to chip away the concrete. A braking bar welded onto a rebar shaft that I kept under the mixer itself. No more hunting down an air gun and going through confined space lock and tagouts. Just stand on top and poke at the concrete until the door moves freely. Upon coming back with the tool, the executive told me that the seal was fine and to run it. I pointed out the same things about the door not sealing regularly. I asked if they were sure. They replied in the affirmative. I started up the mixer. The mixer regularly threw a bunch of silica up into the air. With the water draining out the bottom, this was going to be extra dusty. I offered them an extra mask that I had, and they replied that they would be fine. Well, it's not my lungs. At the same time, I noticed the plant's heavy equipment guy walking into the building and got his attention and made the hand gesture for the front loader. I got a "what the heck" look from them, and they mouthed, "Why?" I pointed down at the mixer, repeated the gesture, and they threw their hands up and they turned around. The load went into the mixer. Water started draining out the bottom. Dust goes everywhere. Go figure. The plant supervisor comes out of his office, I assume after seeing the giant cloud on the cameras, runs over and says something like, "OP, what the heck are you doing?" The mixer is quite loud with concrete in it. I got the general gist though. I just pointed to the executive, who was now covered in dust and staring at the water pouring out of the bottom of the mixer. Never said a word. The plant supervisor's head swiveled and he just crooked a finger at the executive. The executive climbed down. They exited the building with the plant supervisor leading. The fallout. The front loader was able to get the mixer before the mess was able to partially cure inside it, so the cleanup was as easy as dumping it into the bucket and then dumping that in the scrap hole and spraying out the mixer. We continued the shift after I chipped the concrete away from the door and got it closing properly again. Not too much time wasted, maybe an hour. The foreman asked what happened later in the shift and didn't stop laughing for the rest of it. The plant supervisor talked to me afterwards, asked what happened, and told me he didn't blame me for that dumb jerk's mistake since he had said to do what the executive said. I never saw the executive again, and the plant supervisor never said what happened in the parking lot. I can only assume that the most this produced was angry phone calls and a lot of concrete wasted. I left about 3 months later, but I never heard anything else about slow production times from the main office. The lack of maintenance sounds very familiar to me. I drive ready-mix trucks. If we can keep it running until the next holiday, all is good. We have 2 slots of 2 weeks per year that the plant closes, so maintenance to the plant and trucks happens then or until it fails catastrophically and we're shut down by it. Am I the jerk for using my husband's savings to repurchase the bike that he took from our daughter? My daughter received a bike from her uncle, my brother, on her 11th birthday. She was over the moon and excited to use it because it was on her wish list for so long. Days ago, I discovered that my husband reached out to my brother to ask for the receipt for the bike and returned it to the store and kept the money for himself while my daughter was at school. The bike was at home. My daughter and I got home and she started crying after noticing the bike was gone. My husband was home at the time. He told me he returned the bike and got money in return to spend on something useful for us since the bike was just there as a distraction and there was no need for it now since we're in the dead of winter. I was aggravated and lost it on him, saying it wasn't his, didn't come from him, and he didn't pay for it, so he had no right to touch it, especially knowing our daughter's been wanting it for a long time and my brother was decent enough to buy it for her despite barely having money to get himself by. I told him what he did was theft and insisted he hand over the money to me so I could repurchase it, but he said he spent it on stuff for the house and doesn't have any money left now. But I knew about the money he was stashing away in the bedroom that he forbade me from touching, and I took some of it and went out to repurchase the bike while he was out the next day. He found out and lashed out at me, saying I never should have touched the money he was saving for himself, which isn't much, but I lashed right back that I had to so I could repurchase the bike he took from our daughter. He explained that he didn't keep the money for himself and instead spent it for necessities for our home, but he was at fault for taking the bike in the first place and he was responsible for getting it back. He yelled at me for almost 10 minutes, then stormed outside and started smoking. My daughter asked why her dad was upset and that she no longer wants the bike if dad doesn't want her to have it, but I assured her that's not the case and told her she shouldn't feel guilty and to just focus on enjoying her bike. My husband hasn't stopped grilling me about how I disrespected and undermined him and managed to make our daughter hate him after making him look like the bad guy. I again said he shouldn't have touched the bike, end of story. He called me thief and juvenile for taking money from his savings and being sneaky about it. Am I the jerk for the way I got the bike back? Not the jerk, but you know you've got much bigger problems than the bike and this particular money incident. OP, I do, and the money he's saving was supposed to be for emergencies according to him, but he hasn't needed or used it in such emergencies. I'm sorry, but there is definitely something going on with him financially. He has a stash of money for emergencies that you're not allowed to touch, then sells his daughter's birthday present for non-specific stuff for the house with no receipts and no further explanation, yet the upstairs stash was untouched? What could possibly be so urgent that you would sell your daughter's birthday present but not use your emergency fund? Best case scenario, he's got a secret debt issue, gambling problem. Not the jerk. The bit about your kid saying they no longer wanted the bike broke my heart. Your husband is so poor he has to steal from your kids, yet he somehow has enough money to smoke? Not the jerk, but you're married to a huge one. OP, to be fair, we're struggling financially. I won't deny that, but since he's the breadwinner, he tells me it's up to him how he spends the rest of his salary after already providing for us. Yeah, except that he didn't provide for you. He stole from an 11-year-old instead of using his own money to support his family. With all the respect your husband deserves, which I'm sorry, but it's none in this situation, forget him. Not the jerk, but like others, I'm also wondering why you're with this man. He seems to only care about himself and not even a little bit about you or your daughter. Are you with him for your daughter? Because trust me, she doesn't need that kind of drama in her life. It's better to not have a dad than a dad that steals from you for his own fun. Am I the jerk for giving my older daughter's room to my stepdaughter? My new wife and I have our own modern-day Brady Bunch. I have 4 kids of my own and she had 3. My kids are much older than hers, with my 2 oldest having already moved out. Before she moved in, and even before we got married, I promised her and her kids a lot of things. One of those being a much better home to live in. I promised her kids they would each get their own rooms, something they've never had before. The time came for them to move in a couple months back, and I came to realize I actually needed to make the space. My 2 kids with me still were willing to bunk up for at least 1 more year. My daughter here is a senior, so she won't be home much longer. And all I needed to do was get the clearance to give my oldest kids' rooms to my stepkids who actually need the space. I called my older son. He answered and he was okay with me cleaning out the room. My oldest daughter, however, was much more trouble. I called her at least 3 times throughout that day with no answer. I knew she was doing this all on purpose. Not to delve too much into the details, but her and my wife don't get along. By proxy, she's turned on me. At a certain point, I was getting too anxious at the idea of disappointing my new stepkids, so I just went ahead and cleared both rooms for the kids, giving my older daughter's room to one of my wife's girls. We went through a period of being a happy new little family. We went by the holidays. My older daughter did not come home for Christmas. She chose to spend time with her boyfriend of 5 months over us, smoothly. When come the new year, my older daughter was asking for something from her old room. I've talked to her a little bit between the intertwining months, but I admittedly didn't bring up the room thing because by the time I reached her, it didn't seem important. So this was the first time I told her what happened to her old room and how I honestly don't have anything from it anymore. The girl proceeded to scream and insult me. I told her how I tried to reach out to her during the transition and how technically, since she's been at school, it isn't her space anymore. That's when she threw insults at my wife, which was crossing a major line from my point of view. Essentially, it pushed me too far as well. I told her regardless of how she feels about my wife and her family, she's been no better, because for me, she's just been a miserable brat ever since my wife came into our lives. That was the end of it, and it hurt me to say that. I want to understand her issue, but I also have to take care of my new kids, so I can't always put her or her siblings first anymore. I have no one else willing to talk to me about things, and still, knowing how she used to be and knowing what I said was wrong, I can see how I handled the situation might have been too irresponsible. Edit. Okay, I see where this is going. However, one thing I won't be able to take is if you pepper your responses with blatant insults against my wife. As you can tell, I'm rather sensitive towards negativity against her. I already have to deal with that with my kids. I will not respond to allegations against my wife, insults against her, speculation on her age, intentions, or character, because none of that matters when talking about the situation with me and my daughter. The reason why my daughter doesn't like my wife is unimportant and personal. Only the fact that they dislike each other is worth noting for context on why things blew up like this. You're the jerk. New kids don't trump old kids. Transitions need to be managed. Why exactly are you promising your stepkids things that take away from your current kids? What is wrong with you? This. OP said they were now a happy new little family. Like, forget the older kids, am I right? You're the jerk. I don't know how you can more clearly tell your daughter to buzz off better than by getting rid of all of her stuff and giving her room away. Yeah, I was honestly on board with OP until they mentioned that they got rid of their daughter's stuff. I can absolutely understand not wanting a bedroom to go empty after their kid has moved out, but you don't just toss their belongings. My mother did the same to me, and I still haven't completely forgiven her. I wasn't living at home, I was living in the dorms. I was absolutely fine with the idea of her packing up my things, but throwing things away without consulting the owner first is cruel. One item for me was a hat box I dubbed the ex-boyfriend box. I had letters from my high school sweethearts, dried and pressed flowers from some of my first school dances, and small tokens from some of my ex-boyfriends. I actually found out she tossed the box when I called her to ask her to look in the box for me. One of my ex-boyfriends had given me his class ring and had insisted I keep it even after we broke up. He passed away our sophomore year. I wanted to give the ring to his mother so she could remember him with it. I was absolutely devastated to find out the box had been tossed out. OP thinks they're grand and compare themselves to the Brady Bunch, but this is not a sitcom where everything ends well before the credits. You're the jerk. Why did you not at least store her stuff? Did you only try to reach out to her for one day? Also, the way you write about being a happy new family absolutely sounds like you replaced your kids. Even though they're older, they're still your kids and should be first. It sounds like you did everything possibly wrong to have your daughter feel like she's a part of your family, not the least of which was making promises you couldn't keep and lying. I don't blame her or your other kids for inevitably going no contact with you in the future. But hey, you have a shiny new family. ETA, having the stepdaughter in the room is one thing, but the fact that he literally threw away everything in her former room on top of that absolutely sounds like he erased one daughter from his life to replace her with his younger stepdaughter. Am I the jerk for telling a teenager that a wedding is significantly more important than her birthday and she needs to grow up? I invited my soon-to-be mother-in-law wedding dress shopping as an olive branch because we don't have the best relationship. She accepted, but asked if she could bring her boyfriend's 15-year-old daughter, Emily, because Emily loves fashion. Honestly, I think it was more of mother-in-law has some anxiety around my family and wanted an ally, so I said yes. Emily is okay, but ridiculously spoiled. Her divorced parents are in competition for her love, and both have some serious cash to throw around. Emily is having a sweet 16 the same month I'm having my wedding, and she's been talking about it nonstop, picking out the car she wants, making plans for the actual day. Her birthday is a Wednesday, but the party is a Saturday, so she still expects something special on her birthday. She will be going to Disney with her boyfriend, her dad, and mother-in-law. She's already let her mother know that since her birthday falls on his custody time, her mom can make it up to her, so she's having 3 birthdays. I internally roll my eyes a little, but it isn't my business. We had a nice day planned of lunch and wedding dress shopping. It started off okay, but Emily demanded a sip of mother-in-law's champagne, and I was a bit worried about getting kicked out because it's a liability. But mother-in-law told me to chill, and her boyfriend has been allowing this since she was 12. The issue began when Emily was walking around the boutique and found a dress she loved for her party. Mother-in-law told her to try it on, which kind of bothered me because it wasn't Emily's event. My mom told mother-in-law that it was bad etiquette, and mother-in-law seemed surprised. I will give mother-in-law the benefit of the doubt that she didn't know because she is pretty socially oblivious. Emily came out and heard the conversation and told mother-in-law she didn't do anything wrong and we were being Zillas. I nicely asked Emily to stay out of the adult conversation, and Emily told mother-in-law that it isn't even her fault her relationship with her son is strained because we are so nitpicky and she was literally just trying on a dress. I snapped at Emily that she has no idea what she's talking about, and maybe when she's older she'll have a clue, but a wedding is way more important than some birthday party. I said birthdays come every year and it really isn't that special. Emily told me to chill, and why can't I share? And all the dresses I tried on were basic. Finally, mother-in-law told Emily they were leaving and stormed out after paying for the dress. Mother-in-law's boyfriend is upset and said I'm a drama queen. I shouldn't be fighting with his kid, and I'm so mean to mother-in-law. You're the jerk, because here's the thing. Her birthday is more important to her than your wedding. Why are you arguing with a kid because they're excited about their birthday compared to your wedding when it sounds like she barely even knows you? Maybe you should grow up a little. Yeah, 15-year-olds are excited about turning 16. It's a big deal to them, even if it isn't to adult OP. Why would she be as enthused about the wedding of someone she doesn't know very well? Why does OP care this much? What's interesting is OP is mad that Emily isn't centering all her excitement on a wedding between 2 people she doesn't seem to know very well, but is irrationally annoyed that Emily is a kid very excited for her sweet 16, despite Emily not asking OP to share in her excitement. You're the jerk. Fighting with a kid because you lost a bit of spotlight and telling her that her sweet 16 isn't important? Maybe birthdays aren't important to you, but your childhood ones can be. But that's not the point. Her birthday has nothing to do with your wedding, and there's no need to compare. A simple, we're here to wedding dress shop and we want to focus on that experience. She's welcome to look at dresses while she's here, but if you could save trying on for another occasion that would be appreciated, would have sufficed. I honestly don't see why Emily can't also try a dress on at the same time. I don't think it's inappropriate at all. OP doesn't have the monopoly of the shop. OP's reaction is so childish. Just because you personally don't find it inappropriate doesn't mean that it's generally accepted. Most people would realize that going wedding dress shopping for the bride is about just that, wedding dress shopping for the bride. You're the jerk. All that stuff about the details of her party and her being spoiled is completely irrelevant, and it's clear that you just added it to justify your attitude towards her. The situation in question is, you were at your bridal gown appointment. Your soon-to-be mother-in-law dragged a 15-year-old girl with her to basically act as an emotional support animal. She got bored watching her dad's, girlfriend's, son's fiance try on wedding dresses and decided to try on a dress for her upcoming Sweet 16. You got upset, berated your soon-to-be mother-in-law about her boyfriend's daughter trying on a dress, told a 15-year-old to butt out because the grown-ups are talking, and told her that her birthday party is irrelevant and your wedding actually matters. Of course her birthday matters to her. Why the heck would the wedding of her dad's girlfriend's son matter to a 15-year-old? No less, watching said son's fiance try on wedding dresses. Not the jerk. They were ruining your dress experience, and being oblivious isn't a good excuse. Being 16 is kind of a good excuse for being a jerk, but that's why mother-in-law shouldn't have brought her if she couldn't behave appropriately. I don't blame the kid for not knowing that the bridal dress shopping experience should be about the bride, but it is weird to me that mother-in-law wasn't like, "You can try it on when we're done with OP's fitting," or "We will come back for it later." It's not a trip to the mall or something. They were shopping for a bridal gown. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for the way she acted or not? Please let us know. Every day I thank the heavens that I've never had to go to a bridal shower dressing shop thing. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that she should have her imaginary boyfriend cook her dinner? My girlfriend loves to read, and she gets really involved with the books she's reading, and she usually rants and raves about them. It was never a problem, but about 3 months ago, she started to read a lot of romance novels. This happens at least twice a week. She started to project things onto me. For instance, if she's mad at someone in the book, she gets mad at me. Some days, she will tell me not to speak to her and criticize me, and I would be wondering what I did wrong and try to talk to her, and she will just leave the room. The next day, she will sheepishly tell me that she had been mad about something that happened in the book. She also sometimes gets mad at me and points out something really romantic the lead may have done for the woman, and she gets upset at me for not being that romantic. This is easier to deal with, as I just have to be romantic and smooth talk her a bit, which I love to do anyway. Having to figure if it's a real issue or just her being angry about a book is hard, and she gets even more annoyed if I ask her if it's about the book. I've been just ignoring it because I never thought it would be a huge issue. I had a horrible day at work, and I was pretty crushed and exhausted. I greeted her, and she ignored me, and I asked if she was actually mad at me or if she was sulking about a book. She told me to buzz off. I wanted to tell her about how bad it had been, but I really couldn't after she dismissed me like that. I decided to just rest and play games, as I was really tired and didn't want to cook. I ordered food for us, and I was gaming when she asked me if I was making dinner, and I told her I was too tired to cook and had ordered food. She loves to eat home-cooked food and is not a fan of ordering out in general, and she called me lazy. I snapped that maybe one of her imaginary boyfriends could cook for her because I was too tired to do it. She refused to eat the food I had delivered, and she went to bed hungry, and I feel like such a jerk right now. I feel terrible that I upset her, and I know that I should have dealt with this maturely and not tried to insult her. Not the jerk. That's super unhealthy of her. She's basically living vicariously through the characters in the book and making it your responsibility to navigate handling her mood swings over it. I love to read, and I've gotten super emotional over characters, but I've never expected real life to mirror fiction or blamed someone else for what happened in the story. That's just taking it too far. She sounds very immature and unhappy, otherwise she wouldn't be so invested in something that isn't real. People in romance stories are not real and they are unrealistic. She needs help and therapy to figure out what is missing in her life, but she is not ready for a grown-up relationship, and I'd tell her that right now. They're just not a match, and I'd take a break. Maybe forever. Why did she go to bed hungry? If your girlfriend can read a romance novel, she can read a cookbook and follow the step-by-step instructions to prepare a meal or make toast. I second the toast idea. Buttery toast can never be beaten.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.